to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 7 minutes after 6 on this Tuesday, the 1st of October, 2024. Good morning, South Africa. This is the morning brief on SAFM. It's all the local and international news, current affairs, insights and opinions you need to lead the conversation today. And we've carefully curated it all and packaged it for you. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane, and I'm here to deliver your morning brief on this Tuesday morning. Well, overnight, while you slept, there are a few developments that I feel we should flag. In fact, the most important one being the significant escalation in the Israel-Hezbollah conflict in Lebanon. A few days ago, we were merely talking about the possibility of Israel deploying ground troops in parts of Lebanon. Well, that has happened overnight. The Israeli Defense Force saying that it has launched limited, localized, and targeted ground operations in southern Lebanon, an area that has a significant presence, at the very least, of Hezbollah. So that is what has happened overnight, and the Israeli government saying that the targets that they are targeting in that operation, ground operation, pose, quote-unquote, an immediate threat to Israeli communities. You will have heard in the news there with N. Musa, the Israeli Prime Minister, in that video message that there is no part of the Middle East that Israel cannot reach in defense of its people. So significant escalation of that particular conflict, and we feel you should be aware of it. But coming up on this show, and in fact, in the next few minutes, I'll tell you this story. It's been a rather grim week in the United States. 5 executions, 5 different states over 6 days. The past week saw the highest consecutive killings, judicial killings, let's call it that, in the United States in more than 20 years. So we'll put that into perspective in our international focus, in our international update at about 20 past 6. We'll put it into the perspective of where things stand globally in as far as the death penalty, capital punishment is concerned. Amnesty International watches these trends quite closely, and they will talk to us at about 20 past 6. In other news, the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, says there is absolutely no division between his provincial chapter of the ANC and the national leadership of the ANC. He was, of course, responding to the Democratic Alliance Federal Council chairperson, Helen Zille, who's been claiming that Lesufi and the leadership in Gauteng are defying the ANC's national leadership, in fact defied the ANC's national leadership by supporting the removal of the former Tshwane mayor, the DA's Silias Brink. The ANC chairperson in Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, will speak to me at about 20 past 7. Of course, we continue to keep in our radars and our sharp focus the massacre that occurred in Lusikisiki, and we continue to demand answers and updates in as far as the investigation is concerned. We have all of your regulars lined up for you, and Musa with the news updates every half hour rather. Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so. Zaikan watching all your sport throughout the morning. Dauleng Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered. Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. And of course, we are taking your calls on these and other stories, and the number to dial for that is 086 000 2032. You can also send us your WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. We will play those out and engage with your views on this show. The Tuesday edition of The Morning Brief starts now.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365, Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
So for that, let's turn to Ann Musa now with the Daily News Diary. Good morning to you, Ann.
Good morning, Tulaz.
I see that there's been this escalation in the Lebanon-Hezbollah conflict. I imagine that will dominate your coverage this morning.
Yes, that definitely will. And it has been what you have been speaking about, over the couple of weeks. And so not what others would have expected, but that will be dominating, as well as other stories that we are looking at on our local fronts as well.
Yeah, what else is on the diary?
The police ministry, together with the Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane, expected to visit Lusikisiki today, and it comes after the 18 people were gunned down at the weekend. Our President Cyril Ramaphosa conveying his condolences to the families there, and also vowing that the gunmen will be arrested. Police are also urging and calling on the community to come forward with any information they might have regarding this shooting. Other stories, reaction following the announcement by the Gauteng Finance MEC, Lebogang Mahile, yesterday on that the provincial government plans to settle the 12.9 billion rand debt owed to the roads agency for the e-tolls, and Mahila saying that the first installment of the 3.8 billion rand has been paid. Now, outer the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse are demanding transparency regarding the 30% that of Sanral's debt, which has to be settled by the Gauteng government. There's also a protest in Vleerhof, residents there staging a shutdown, and that is over poor service delivery and a lack of infrastructure. We look at the situation there, and also concerns raised by the community as well as their frustrations. It's not the first time that they are actually having a protest like this, and residents there saying that their concerns have fallen on deaf ears, and thus prompting this shutdown there. There's a briefing by the Minister of Employment and Labour, Nomakosazana Methen, on the Department of Employment and Labour's blitz joint inspections and compliance raids that have been taking place across the country, and the Minister is also expected to provide an update on the findings of these raids and also outline interventions and strategies by the department to basically assist businesses to be compliant. We also have more on the MK Party challenging Dr. John Hlophe's court ruling, and the MK Party saying that it will appeal the Western Cape High Court ruling barring Hlophe from participating in the sittings of the Judicial Service Commission. And just lastly, the battle to ascend the throne continues in the High Court in Polokwane. That's where Princess Masindi Mpepu is challenging her uncle, the Bavenda King Tony Mpepu Ramabulana, and this matter was referred back to the lower court by the Constitutional Court. Just some of the stories that we will be looking at if my voice holds this morning.
Yeah, I can tell, and I could tell that something is happening with you this morning. All right, keep strong. I think drink warm water. I'm not giving you medical advice, but yeah.
Warm water, lemon and some honey might just do it for me.
Absolutely. Let's talk a bit later. Ann Musa is watching your news and will give you updates, as she says, as long as her voice holds throughout the morning here on The Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So let's give you a sense then of how your weather is looking on this Tuesday morning. We start with one warning. One warning. The one warning is a yellow level 2 warning. It says damaging waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea are expected between Cape Agalas and Plettenberg Bay in the morning. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria is fine with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 21. Johannesburg is fine and windy, 3 to 19. Mbombela is cloudy at first, otherwise partly cloudy, 7 to 21. Polokwane partly cloudy, becoming fine by late morning, 9 to 24. Mahikeng is fine with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 23. Bloemfontein is fine with a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 18. Kimberley is fine with a minimum of 1 and a maximum of 18. Cape Town is partly cloudy. The wind is light and variable in the morning, otherwise fresh southeasterly with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 15. Gqeberha is cloudy with isolated morning showers, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon. The wind is fresh to strong westerly, becoming light from late afternoon with a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 18. East London is partly cloudy with the wind being fresh southwesterly, becoming light to moderate from late afternoon with a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 19. Durban is partly cloudy. The wind is moderate to fresh southerly to southwesterly with a minimum of 11 and a maximum of 18. Finally, Pietermaritzburg will see morning fog. Otherwise, it's fine with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 17.
For 18 years, Kumbulekaya has been fostering healing through forgiveness and reconciliation.
Are you asking me that?
Yes.
I grew up without a mom.
So what happened to your family?
What family? You are my family. What happened to you?
Witness as families forgive one another and reunite after a long time. Catch the new season of Kumbulekaya on SABC 1 every Wednesday at 9 p.m.
The reality is that 90% of South Africans don't save enough for retirement. This National Seniors Month, why not be part of the 10% who do? Choose an interest rate of up to 11.7% after 60 months with a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account. Anyone 55 and over can open one on the Money app in less than 2 minutes. Go to nedbank.co.za for more info. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Masandawana ladies want to rubber stamp their authority with maximum points to stay on the summit. But Copper Belt ladies want to fight with all they have to move away from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Copper Belt Ladies FC on Saturday, 5 October at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
So what we try to do with this feature is basically to bring within your orbit some of the stories that would not necessarily would have been within your radar. And this particular one is exactly one of those. 5 executions, 5 different states over 6 days. The past week saw the highest consecutive judicial killings in the United States in more than 20 years. The first execution was carried out in South Carolina. 2 more deaths were in Missouri and Texas. The last 2 were in Alabama and Oklahoma. With these executions, the United States has reached 1,600 executions since the death penalty was reinstated by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1976. For more of the global picture around the death penalty and its implementation, I'm joined now by Shanila Mohammed, who is Executive Director of Amnesty International. Good morning to you, Shanila. I've got to thank you for your time. So it would seem, as far as countries that implement capital punishment are concerned, this past week in the United States was particularly grim, because my understanding is that even those countries that have the death penalty don't necessarily implement it with this much frequency.
Morning to listen, morning to your listeners. Yes, I mean, the situation is really concerning because what we're seeing around, in countries where the death penalty is implemented, that there seems to be, an increase. I mean, for example, in 2023, executions more than tripled in sub-Saharan Africa. And, the global executions have soared to the highest number in almost a decade. So to give you an example, there was a spike recorded in Iran. Sub-Saharan Africa recorded an increase by 66%. And Somalia was the only country known to have carried out executions in our region, in Southern Africa. So, I mean, I think that, definitely we're seeing a spike. And this is really concerning because, as Amnesty International, for decades now, we have been fighting against the death penalty because we do believe that no one, including any government, has a right to take away anyone's life.
And Shanela, it seems to me that what you just painted as a picture of a spike in executions goes against a trend that you observed as Amnesty International in your report last year, that actually the number of countries that have capital punishment on their statutes as an option is actually declining.
Absolutely. And in fact, this has been one of the successes that Amnesty International, talks about. In our work, we've been working on eradicating the death penalty for decades now. And we've seen great successes. I mean, many, many countries around the world, South Africa included, chose not to implement the death penalty. So the numbers of countries that are really seeing that this is a horrific way of dealing with crime basically have increased, but yet the number of executions in the countries that do carry it out have also increased. And I think that for me is quite disturbing. And then, of course, now we're seeing more and more calls from civil society, and we see that in South Africa, because of the crime, escalation of crime, we're seeing more and more people, saying, well, why aren't we bringing the death penalty back? Well, there's reasons why, the death penalty is not the right way to deal with issues such as crime, because, research has shown that it actually does not deter crime. So I think that, people's belief that if we kill somebody and have the death penalty, then crime will drop. Well, that's not based on any factual evidence, because actually it doesn't happen that way, and it does not deter crime.
Other than it's what you're saying is evidence that it does not deter crime, what are some of the key arguments against the death penalty?
Well, Tulis, one of the things, and we saw that during the apartheid era, is the way in which it is used within an unfair justice system. So, in a country where the justice system in itself is not fair, then, you have, countries, I mean, some of the top executing countries are China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. And all are guilty of issuing death sentences under circumstances that are far from transparent. So, it's often used in those countries to sort of get rid of rivals, etc. Well, another argument I think that is really an important one, that is that once you execute somebody, it's irreversible. And we know, and we've seen, evidence has shown that often innocent people can be eliminated, and you can't undo that. So, for example, since 1976, 195 U.S. death row prisoners have been exonerated completely for their crimes. So, these are people, had they been executed, 195 innocent people would have died.
There's no coming back from it.
Exactly.
Once you've implemented it, there's no appealing successfully and redressing that wrongful conviction and sentencing.
Absolutely. And the one of the other really worrying things about it is that it's used as a political tool. So, you're in a country that has the death penalty, governments want to get rid of opposition leaders, etc., trumped up charges, and suddenly, and we saw it in South Africa. I mean, we've lived it ourselves in South Africa, where many, many, many of our freedom fighters were executed by the apartheid government, and, for no reason other than their fight for freedom. So, again, the use of as a political tool is something that we see happening more and more around the world as well.
All right, Shanila Mohammed, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me this morning. We thought we'd bring you in just to add some context, some global context to a story that was playing out in the United States. Shanila Mohammed is the Executive Director of Amnesty International. All right, let's take a listen to some of your voice notes. We've been calling for you to talk to us either by giving us a call on 086 000 2032 or your voice notes to 061 410 4107. Let's hear what you've had to say at this moment.
Good morning, Caesar. In South Africa, death penalty can be used to extract or to obtain information from the killers. Example, in Babita Diokeren case, the people who killed her, they are in jail, but the person who sent them was never arrested. Had death penalty. They could have said, you guys, you killed her. Unless you tell us who sent you, you're going to get death penalty. They might have got the kingpin. Death penalty is not only for killing people. It can be used in different ways. And the numbers from Soweto, thank you.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. There's something faulty in the reasoning of these people from Amnesty International. They say that no government has the right to take away the life of someone. Well, who gave a murderer or a rapist the right to take away someone else's life? So, and now they're also saying that the death penalty doesn't prevent crime. It's not about preventing, it's about a just punishment. You are receiving what is due to you. Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Yeah, if I can weigh in just a little bit then on that last comment. Part of the theory of punishment of crime includes prevention, deterrence, as well as, a measure of punishment, as you say, getting your just desert, as they call it. But it's all proportionate. It has to be in proportion. In our country, the main arguments against the death penalty ended up centering around not only the right to life, but the right to human dignity, which is fundamental in our constitution, and also the right to not be subjected to cruel and degrading punishment, as well as to be free from all forms of violence. And it became a conundrum to say, if we are saying no one should mete out violence against any other person, what gives the state the right to mete out violence against criminals in that particular way? I'm not saying that it should never be reviewed at all. I'm just putting on the table what the considerations were. That brings us to 6:30. Let's check in with N. Musa now with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Mayele says motorists who paid for e-tolls will not be refunded. He addressed the media in Johannesburg yesterday on the Gauteng government's plan to settle the 12.9 billion rand debt owed by the provincial government to roads agency SANRAL for the e-tolls. The Eastern Cape Transport and Community Safety MEC Xolile Nqata has called on members of the community to come forward with any information that could assist police in apprehending the suspects involved in the Lusikisiki mass shooting. And Israel says it's launched a limited ground offensive against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The Israeli military said the operation was localized and targeted and was backed by airstrikes and artillery fire. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Some good news. The N3 North crash at Van Buren is now being cleared. There was a vehicle that overturned earlier this morning, quite a big crash. It's back traffic through to Elands, and beyond that, the N12 to Voortrekker, the N3 back towards Germiston, Rand Airport interchange. So the route out of Germiston, Albert, and up through Bedford remains heavy, but the obstruction is out of the way. Just a reminder of protest and community unrest in the Vloerhof area. You may well find some traffic diversions there. And it's coming out of Midrand. It's really busy early this morning on Olifantsfontein from Lever Road across the highway down towards Pretoria Main Road. Durban, weather a lot better this morning than it was yesterday. About 64 or 65 mils of rain recorded in the last 24 hours. That's a lot, but clear skies this morning. There may be some surface water and some areas of flooding. I know the M4 inbound at Dowell Bridge, the left lane was underwater a little while ago, so the rain has eased, but there is still the problem of wet and slippery roads to deal with. And Cape Town, you can see it's back to school day today with just sort of increasing traffic volumes all over, particularly coming out of Mitchell's Bay, and that's busy again, especially out towards Samora Michelle side. The M5's already backed up from Ottery side, and the N1 into Cape Town standing already from sort of Plattekloof Hill area all the way through to Sable Road. It's busy across all lanes. A busy Tuesday morning on major routes into Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you. I see that the Amazulu, it's early days in the season, but Amazulu, Usuthu, are not waiting and not willing to be patient to see how it all pans out given their start this season.
I know, Thulas, with 3 straight losses, I think Amazulu are really feeling the pressure. And it's interesting, though, that they've given, like you said, their coach, early days, the boot, literally. And I think they're hoping the next coach can kickstart their season. But, you know, the team has some solid talent. Maybe all they need is a fresh game plan. And that's the news coming from the Amazulu camp. I think they failed to secure any points from the first 3 matches. They had defeats against Polokwane City, Marumo Gallants, as well as Kaizer Chiefs. And they're bottom of the table. So the club releasing a statement thanking Franco, Pablo Martin, and his assistant, Eto van den Broel, for their hard work and dedication, but a new direction needed as they search for a fresh face in terms of their coach. So up next, Amazulu will be facing a tough match against Orlando Pirates. So they're hoping that shake-up will see them get back on track. Now, SABC Sport has established that former Morocco Swallows employees and players are currently embroiled in a dispute with Marumo Gallants over a breach of contract following the recent takeover. The Dube Birds sold their Premier Soccer League top flight status prior to the start of the 24-25 season to Gallants, paving the way for the club owned by Abraham Selo to return to the Betway Premiership. Now, while the deal was given the green light by the PSL Executive Committee as Swallows ceased to exist, it appears that there's some casualties when the transaction was eventually finalized. With Gallants completing the buyout, part of the agreement was to inherit all the existing contract for both players and staff. Elsewhere, Real Madrid had named Kylian Mbappe on their squad to face Lille in the Champions League. That's later on Wednesday after he missed 1 match with a thigh injury. The French forward Mbappe was expected to be out until after the upcoming international break, but appears to have made a quick recovery. Now, the FIFA organization, they've banned the Cameroon Football Federation president Samuel Eto'o for 6 months over his conduct at a women's under-20 World Cup match. They didn't say exactly why he was banned, but the former Barcelona star was deemed guilty of breaching FIFA rules relating to offensive behavior, violation of the principles of fair play, and misconduct of players and officials. The charges relate to Cameroon's last 16 game against Brazil, which the South Americans won 3-1 after extra time. Cricket action, India blitzed a number of batting records on the 4th day of the rain-hit second test against Bangladesh in Kanpur. The hosts India, who led the 2-match series 1-0, smashed the record for the fastest team to reach 50, 100, 150, 200 and 250 in tests. They racked up 285 for 9 declared off 34.4 overs in reply to Bangladesh's 233 all out. Tennis action. Britain's Jack Draper has withdrawn from the Shanghai Masters after injuring himself at the Japan Open. Draper had treatment on an abdominal issue during the quarterfinal against the Francis Hugo Humbert and ultimately retired from the match. And finally, some rugby news. The Lions roaring into their next United Rugby Championship clash with a confidence booster after a bonus point win over Ulster. They'll face Edinburgh this Saturday at Ellis Park with the return of key players like Captain Marius Lowe and flank JC Pretorius set to bolster the team. Coach Ivan van Rooyen is expecting a tough battle as Edinburgh, they came off a narrow loss to the Bulls and are hungry for a win. And that's where we'll leave it for now on the sporting front. We'll bring you more sport at the top of the hour. For SAFM, I'm Sai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Ndauleng Lechela. Good morning to you, Ndauleng. I see that Google is casting an eye over on Thailand as far as its plans are concerned for AI.
That's right, Thulas, and morning to you. Now, big tech companies are in a race to ramp up their AI capabilities, and Google's parent company, Alphabet, the latest to do so. It has put aside $1 billion. This will be used to build a data center in Thailand. This move marks a ramp up into Google's expansion and its commitment to staying ahead in the region, especially as it faces strong competition from the likes of Microsoft and OpenAI. This will be its first data center in the country. Analysts in the meantime say this new facility will be the backbone of Thailand's digital economy, powering cloud computing technology that allows for access to storage, computing, and analytics services over the internet. The data center will support the growing demand for Google Cloud and AI innovations, as well as popular services like Google Search, Google Maps, and Google Workspace in Thailand. This investment is expected to create around 14,000 jobs annually from 2025 to 2029 and contribute about $4 billion to Thailand's GDP. Now, Google's move is part of its broader strategy to strengthen its presence in Southeast Asia, where Thailand is emerging as a digital hub. This development is also significant in the context of Thailand's growing digital economy, which is expected to reach $50 billion by 2025. Now, with Google's investment, the country is somewhat poised to become a key player in the region's digital landscape.
Quite fascinating then, Ndauleng, because you don't think Thailand and think, technical hub or a digital economy in that sense. You think of the other countries within that region. Staying with matters AI, who is Cerebras? I see that they are preparing for an initial public offering in the US.
So Cerebras has emerged as one of NVIDIA's biggest competitors. It's planning to go public. Cerebras has a chip that is said to be more powerful than NVIDIA's GPU chip. And so it's trying to, get all of NVIDIA's customers to kind of peg it's trying to get all of NVIDIA's customers, and so it's planning on going public to try and get more funding to invest into the company. Now, this company has a chip called the WS3. As I said, it's said to be more powerful with more processing units and memory than NVIDIA's top chip. This means it can handle a complex AI tasks and handle these tasks faster and better. The firm also offers cloud services, making it easy for customers to use its technology. This puts it, of course, in direct competition with NVIDIA. Now, with its advanced chip and cloud services, Cerebras is becoming a strong alternative for companies and researchers working with AI. And when we look at the market share from about the first quarter of 2024, research shows that NVIDIA holds 88% of the GPU market and has generally become a bellwether for equity markets, influencing broader moves. Now, Cerebras's IPO is worth $8 billion and comes at a time when the tech IPO market has been quite downbeat due to the economic environment that has been characterized by high interest rates. Now that easing cycle is gaining traction, it seems like listing appetite is returning, and when looking at listing appetite and looking at companies that actually invest or back tech listings, breaking ranks with tradition, Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs, known to back tech deals, are not actually participating in this listing. Rather, Citigroup and Barclays have assumed leading roles in the offering.
Lastly, Dowling, give us a sense of how it looked in Asian markets, US as well as the JSE, how it closed yesterday.
So markets closing the third quarter on a high. It was green across the board in Wall Street, with the S&P 500 hitting a record high yesterday. Over in Asia, stocks continued to advance. We saw Chinese stocks hit a 16-year high yesterday, following optimism around those stimulus measures. Trading, though, will be thin in that region today as markets in China and Hong Kong are closed on account of a holiday. Coming back home, sentiment quite sour. Weakness recorded in the local bourse as well as the local unit. The all share falling over 1%, but on a monthly basis, it made gains, ending September 3.3% higher. Meanwhile, the rand slightly weaker following Powell's comments suggesting that upcoming rate cuts will be smaller than markets had initially expected. It's sitting at 17.28 to the dollar from about 17.06 yesterday morning.
And you know I was going to say it, right? It's good to have your voice back. Darling Lechela there. She's back with more of your updates in the second hour, just after 7:30, watching all things business, the economy, as well as the markets for you throughout the morning here on The Morning Brief.
Hi, I'm Andrew, and I was recently diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome. Patients like myself go through a long and strenuous journey to get a stem cell transplant. I am grateful for the support I've received as I wait for the call that my donor has been found. This Sunflower Month, be a lifeline to patients like myself by registering to become a stem cell donor. You can save a life by registering at dkmsafrica.org.
This summer, we have extra large offers on Ford Ranger XL, XLT and Wildtrak from only 481,900 for a Ranger XL single cab 4x2. It's the extra large Ranger offer from only 481,900. Visit your nearest participating Ford dealer. Optional service plan included. While stocks last. T&Cs apply.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
7:15 here on the Morning Brief. Let's shift our attention to this story now. The Gauteng government says it has paid the first installment of its 12.9 billion rand e-toll debt. Gauteng Finance and Economic Development MEC Lebogang Maile announced at a media briefing yesterday that the province has paid an installment of 3.8 billion rand. Maile says the implications of the e-toll debt require the provincial government to manage finances in a prudent manner while carefully balancing the service delivery needs of the province's citizens. Let's bring into the conversation Amos Munyela, who is COSATU's Gauteng Provincial Chairperson. Good morning to you, Mr. Munyela. I've got to thank you for your time. Your reaction, this was expected. The split was always 30-70, 30% to be paid by Gauteng and 70% to be paid by national government. But it has now come to pass that the provincial government has had to pay this 3.8 billion rand. Your reaction?
No, good morning to yourself and the listeners of SAFM. I think we must appreciate and applaud the government of Gauteng in taking over this debt towards relieving motorists and the people of Gauteng. And I think we also want to appreciate what the MEC has said, because we must make a balancing act. This is a debt that was created by national government for the province, and the province stood firm in terms of making
making sure that they scrap the e-toll. So there's going to be somewhere where services might be a little bit compromised. And then I like the statement by the MEC that's saying you need to play a balancing act so that you don't affect services, basic services to the people of this province. We are delighted by the beginning of the payment of this. So we're happy that the weight of the premier of this province is now paying is now becoming to fruition in terms of making sure that the promises that we make to the people are the promises that we keep. We're just delighted, but then we're just saying the province must make sure that they are financially prudent and making sure that they are balancing the budget in order to allow service delivery to proceed.
Part of what you've said in your first response to me includes the concept that, quote unquote, in your own words, somewhere where services might be compromised. That should leave you worried. Surely, Mr. Munyela.
Well, everyone, when you pay the debt, even in your household, when you pay a particular debt, it means that there will be somewhere where there will be a little bit of a leakage, but then you must have strategies to make sure that you cover that leakage. So we are worried, all of us. I mean, if it was not implementation by national government, Gauteng government wouldn't be where it is now. So we think that it is quite true that there will be those leakages, but the strategy to cover those leakages is what is important for the people of Gauteng. I've seen where the department that are collecting revenue will be able to see as to how best are we going to when revenue has been collected to make sure that we cover those that leakage that would have been created by the payment of the e-toll debt.
Do you consider the use of this money in this manner to be prudent use of taxpayers' money?
Well, yes, it is prudent use of taxpayers' money. I mean, it is relieving the taxpayers themselves. Taxpayers in Gauteng have been saying, we must be treated like people of Western Cape, people of KZN, who, when they go to work and when they go to visit their own families, they are not paying any money to use the roads. So it is something that is fundamental for the working class and the poor, and that's why we are always saying, much as this is happening, there must be strategies to make sure that we balance our budget for service delivery.
Just lastly then, on that note of service delivery, what are your red lines? What are the lines that the provincial government simply cannot cross in as far as, trying to manage and balance its budget while honoring this debt? Also in the context of already, biting budget cuts that we are seeing that are affecting service delivery in some respects.
Well, there are 2 or 3, 4 areas that one will want to talk to, which should not be red areas. The area as it relates to health, where even if you do something, you may not go deeper into that to make sure that health services are provided to the working class and the poor. The second part is on education. So whatever thing that we do, we must not even get deeper into the education sector and cut more from that side. The fourth one is on safety and security, community safety and security. So there are big promises in terms of safety of the people of Gauteng, where if you go deeper into that, then you compromise safety and community. And lastly is the issue within the social development department, where you are working with the NGOs to make sure that they alleviate the poverty and assist to those who are destitute, that you may not go deeper into that thing. So those are the red flags that we're seeing in terms of this thing. You don't need even to touch all of those areas.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Amos Munyela, who is COSATU's Gauteng Provincial Chairperson, reacting to the announcement made by the Gauteng MEC for Finance and Economic Development, Lebogang Maile, that the province has made the first installment of 3.8 billion rand towards the settling of e-toll debts.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Stays very heavy on the run out of Germiston and Alberton this morning, up through towards Gilulis. We had an early morning crash, a vehicle overturning, which backed things up. That was cleared and it was replaced straight away with a broken down vehicle that got itself stuck across 2 lanes. That's now being cleared, but you've got that sort of permanent left lane closure for the roadworks. It's been there forever. So all of those incidents and the big traffic build-up remains heavy. If you're coming from the south and you've got flights to connect with and you think you're going to get up through Gilulis, make sure sure you've got a ton of extra time to get through, or preferably get onto some alternative routes. That to N3 North into Guludies will stay jam-packed solidly for some time. Staying east, a crash on the N12 at Atlas Road. That's heavy this morning coming out of Benoni. Big queues back as far as Pitfontein Road. The Mike 1 busier than normal as we go back to school. You can see that from Ormonde through to Empire Road in Braamfontein. Very heavy. The N1 south out of Pretoria, crash blocking a lane at the R21, so that's a bit slow. You've then got a big backlog from Brockfontein all the way down to New Road this morning. And Olifantsfontein coming from Lever Road across towards the highway and on towards Pretoria Main Road. Very busy there. Big backlogs from Lever Road this morning. Durban's M7, that's heavy if you're heading up to Pinetown. Delays from North D, North Park area through Hans Detman, jammed all the way towards the N3 highway. Cape Town, busy as well. We've got a collision scene in front of Langa on the N7, Jake Scoville Drive at Blue Gum. So that's really busy. If you've come out of Mitchell's Play in the M7, you're going to hit traffic at Vangate Mall and go very slowly right the way passing that Langa area. The N1 into town is slow today, queuing up already from Plattekloof Hill through to the Sable Road exit, and the M5 highway, there's some pressure as you load up from Ottery just into Mitchell's Play, and that's all very slow. Routes like the R300 towards Samora Michelle, M7 at Highlands, that's heavy, and there's been a crash in amongst all those roadworks as well on AZ Berman at Highlands Drive, so some extra delays that side of Mitchell's Plain as well. Looks busy across that whole region actually. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let me ask you this question. Have you noticed a difference in your bank account with the recent interest rate drop? Have recent petrol price cuts helped you in any way that you've noticed? Well, the General Industries Workers Union, GIWUSA, says it is concerned that despite recent decreases in fuel prices and cuts to interest rates, South African households continue to face a high cost of living. The union was responding to the Household Affordability Index report published yesterday by the Pietermaritzburg Economic Justice and Dignity Group. The report reveals trends that show an escalation in the cost of living. Let's speak to the president of GIWUSA, and that is Mamitlo Sibei. Good morning to you, Mamitlo. I've got to thank you for your time. So, why do you believe that there's a disconnect between the recent rate cut and the fuel price drops and the cost of living as it's experienced by ordinary citizens?
Morning to listeners and to listeners. Well, it's really very simple. What the report does reveal is what our members have been telling us, that they are feeling the pinch, that the cost of living is continuing to rise. And what this report tells us is that on a month-to-month basis, of the household, in terms of the Household Affordability Index, that on a month-to-month basis, the household food basket has risen by 0.5%, and of course on a yearly basis by 1.9%, and that take it to 5,260 rand on a monthly basis. This in a context, let's remember, of a massive unemployment that is in excess of over 12 million in this country, with many of these people without any form of income except social grant, in a context of workers on 60% of them on minimum wage. And the reality is the wages of the workers are actually falling. You just have to look at the report. And that was released recently by Reserve Bank, that shows that the gross and the real wages of the workers have fallen between the second quarter of 2021 from 5.1% to, I think, almost below or declining in real terms, in terms of 1.7% in the second quarter of 2023. Right now, wages of the workers are really falling, but it's not only that. It is a fact that other incomes of the working class, particularly for those that are unemployed, the social grants. Take an example with children's grant that is at 533 a month, in a context where the food poverty line put what it requires to feed a child at 766 rand a month, and that's the reason 1/4 of children in this country are actually stunted, right? What it means is that they are stunted because of malnutrition, because we can't feed them enough food. So that is the real situation here.
So it seems to me then, Mamitra, that where you pinpoint the problem to be is in the real wages of employed South Africans. How do we even begin to address that in the current context of South Africa, the high unemployment that we face, but also, the situation that we've had until recently where the drive was really to control inflation?
Well, the point we're making is that when you listen to the ministers, in the GNU, their self-congratulation, their celebrations, shows what planet are they inhabiting, which is separated by a huge gulf from the reality of the working class. And I think this report actually reveals that when you actually take it at face value, it may suggest that actual inflation rate is beginning to slow down. But that is because 21 foods have actually went down in prices, whilst 23 have went up. The question is, what food went up, what food went down? The ones that the ministers and their likes are actually consuming, which are obviously imported food, that are benefiting from general lowering of commodity prices in global markets, as well as the strengthening of rand, have went down. The ones that have went up include what? Include maize meal, that has went up by 5%, potatoes and bananas by 11%, right? And I think the other one is 11%. I think potatoes and bananas and tomatoes by 10%, right? That is a reality. These are local staples that are making a disproportionately high, expenses of the working class, and as well as them being produced locally and therefore not benefiting from this thing that I've just cited. But in terms of unemployment, it is very simple, Thulasizwe.
Sure.
The reality is that the poverty of the black working class itself is very central to deindustrialization and, of course, low economic growth. That is part of the stagnation that include alternation between low economic growth and recession. What am I talking about? Many working class families are unable to afford very basic things which in this day and age you found on an average household. Things like washing machine, dishwashers, right? But also even basic things like PCs, fridges, and all lot of things which will be the basis for resuscitation of the manufacturing. There is simply no market for it. We say put a decent minimum wages in place, and the recent research have said a livable minimum wage will actually be 15,000, and we've just made submission to a national minimum wage commission suggesting that.
All right, Mamitra, I've got to leave it there. That's Mamitra Sebei, who is the president of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, GIWUSA, weighing in on the high cost of living, which the union insists continues without abating, despite the recent cuts in the interest rates as well as the price drops in as far as fuel is concerned. And in fact, I do believe that we are due for a massive fuel cut again this month, but GIWUSA saying that they are concerned that that's not translating into affordability for ordinary South Africans. It brings us to 7 a.m. Let's check in with N. Musa now with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, no refunds for motorists who paid e-tolls and EFF's concerns over Imfuleni local municipality's failure to pay workers. Good morning. Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Maile says motorists who paid for e-tolls will not be refunded. He addressed the media in Johannesburg yesterday on the Gauteng government's plan to settle the 12.9 billion rand debt owed by the provincial government to roads agency SANRAL for the e-tolls. Maile says the first installment of 3.8 billion rand, which comprises 3.2 billion rand in historical debt and 546 million rand of the maintenance portion, has already been paid.
When people were paying for e-tolls, remember it was legal, it was not illegal. And they were paying because they were utilizing the service. So they will not be paid back because it was not illegal. Their money was not collected illegally by government. So I think that will be the answer to that.
The Eastern Cape Transport and Community Safety MEC Xolile Nqata has called on members of the community to come forward with any information that could assist police in apprehending the suspects involved in the Lusikisiki mass shooting. 18 people were killed at the weekend. President Cyril Ramaphosa has sent his condolences to the families and vowed that the gunmen will be apprehended. Nqata says people with information can remain anonymous.
Lusikisiki is one of the crime spots in the province. It's quite clear that a lot more still needs to be done so that people can feel safe in their area. They did tell us that in the night they would hear sounds of gunfire happening. It is indicative of the existence of illegal firearms that are in the community. And hence we call upon the community to come forward and provide that information to us because the criminal elements are not falling from the trees. They live with community, within household, and therefore people have this information. That's why we're saying they must share it confidentially through our hotline so that a follow-up is made.
Main Reef Road in the Vleerhof area west of Johannesburg is inaccessible to traffic due to protest by residents. The community is staging a shutdown to protest the lack of infrastructure and poor service delivery in the area. It says numerous attempts to engage with local government officials have failed, with residents' concerns falling on deaf ears. Vleerhof community leader Selby Lishaba says the community is frustrated with the absence of essential facilities like clinics, schools and a police station.
We started around 4 o'clock in the morning. We are protesting on Main Reef. We've closed down Main Reef that is passing through Vleerhof. The primary things will be, we've been negotiating with government and asking for them to build infrastructure like schools. Vleerhof Primary School is already over 13 years where the school has been on containers and there's never been anything to show that the government is serious in building a proper school for us. And then we don't have any clinic, there's no sports facilities, there is nothing in Vleerhof.
The EFF in Gauteng has expressed concerns over the Mfuleni local municipality's failure to pay municipal workers' salaries for the month due to its dire financial state. The party says the municipality has not paid salaries to workers in critical service delivery departments, including water, waste and electricity. According to the EFF, the crisis follows Eskom's attachment of the municipality's accounts due to its inability to pay debts. EFF's provincial chairperson Nkululeko Dunga.
The municipality has completely failed to establish proper revenue collection systems and credible financial management. Without radical changes, the financial collapse will continue. The municipality has consistently failed to comply with National Treasury's debt relief program requirements concerning Eskom debt, resulting in its exclusion from the MFMA Section 124 debt relief program. While Gauteng MEC for Finance, Mr. Lebogang Maile, has acknowledged the financial collapse and bankruptcy of the municipality, he has failed to take decisive measures to address the situation.
And finally, Israel says it's launched a limited ground offensive against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The Israeli military said the operation was localized and targeted and was backed by airstrikes and artillery fire. The BBC's Joe Floater has the details.
We've had a few reactions from Hezbollah in the form of missiles being fired into the north of Israel, about 10 projectiles in the last hour into the area of Mount Meron. There's a military base there. There have also been a couple of explosions reported near Tel Aviv, but anticipated from everyone is a much larger reaction to the fact that there are Israeli boots on the ground in Lebanon. That's something that Hezbollah has been training for and anticipating. Whether or not they've got the capacity to fight back, given the relentless nature of the last 2 weeks of attack on the leadership, on their infrastructure, on their communications and on their weaponry, well, that's what we're going to find out in the next few hours and days.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Maile says motorists who paid for e-tolls will not be refunded. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at Outsurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, make sure you don't leave it too long before you get in the traffic this morning. It is really busy as schools go back across the nation for the start of term 4. You can just see so much more traffic. We've also now got some protesting north of Alberton, south of City Deep in the Steeldale area. It'd be a good idea to avoid that, particularly if you're trying to get to or from Alberton on Heidelberg Road. Just get onto some alternatives. That whole area is very significantly gridlocked. Steeldale, sort of just north of the Voortrekker N12 junction is where that problem is. Big delays out of Benoni with a crash on the N12 at Atlas Road. That's a pushback as far as Plitfontein Road this morning. Pretoria, the rundown Dustboard Tunnel from Bremer onto Transylvania, about 3 big sets of traffic lights down. That's pretty chaotic as well. Durban's M7 heading out towards Pinetown, really heavy today. Queues from the North Dean, North Park area up towards the N3. There's also a crash at the Paradise Valley interchange going past Pavilion into Pinetown. So the M7's heavy and the N3 now queuing up as well. Cape Town Mitchell's Plain, a collision in the roadworks right in the middle of it, Highlands Drive and AZ Berman, so that's all very busy, and a crash opposite Lunga on the N7 at Blue Gum. That's causing a pushback as far as Vangate Mall. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, rugby. The Springboks are eyeing a clean sweep as they gear up for a tough UK tour with Scotland, England and Wales awaiting them. And in tennis, the world number 1, Yannick Sinner, says that he has been in a very difficult battle, enduring sleepless nights over his doping case. We'll find out more at around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. It's the second hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. In this hour, we will return to the focus on that mass shooting, the massacre in Lusikisiki that occurred over the weekend, simply because we refuse to normalize the abnormal. So let me tell you why this remains an area of grave concern. I don't have time to give you a timeline of all the incidents and the mass shootings, even for the last 2-3 years for the whole country. I'd be sitting here a very long time reading through the timeline. But what I do want to do, just to tell you why this must not be allowed to become another fleeting moment of outrage, another fleeting headline before we move on to the next trend. Just a timeline of the last 2 years or so. In the Eastern Cape alone, I won't go into Gauteng, I won't go into KwaZulu-Natal. 16 November 2022, 7 family members of the Mkada family were gunned down by unknown men in the Eastern Cape. 30 January 2023, 8 people were killed and 3 others wounded in a shooting during a birthday party in KwaZakele in Gqeberha. 2 February 2023, 10 people were killed after gunmen stormed 2 rural towns in Biki and Qunu in the Eastern Cape. 13 November 2023, 4 people were killed and another one injured in a mass shooting at Gwadwesi in Nelson Mandela Bay. 5 December 2023, 4 brothers shot, 3 killed in a shooting at an initiation school near Butterworth. 7 January 2024, 4 men fatally shot in Ugi in the Eastern Cape. 19 May 2024, mass shooting in Willowvale claims 7 lives, including a child. 6 June 2024, 6 members of a family shot in cold blood in Zolo. 20 August 2024, 4 men gunned down in a mass shooting at a house in Bethelsdorp in the Eastern Cape. And of course, we had this incident that then occurred over the weekend. This is simply what we are talking about, that we cannot allow the abnormal to be normalized. So we will focus on that. We have a couple of interviews lined up with authorities in the Eastern Cape, following through on what is being done to solve this crime. Of course, we will take your calls on this issue and others, and the number to dial for that is 086 000 2032. You can also send us a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. The second hour of the morning brief starts now.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
Mubango returns for an explosive new season on SABC2. A renaissance of new beginnings, intrigue, and drama with old enemies and new characters. Catch the rebirth season of Mubango every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. on SABC2 or stream it on SABC Plus. Mubango, ukovela panda. SABC2.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
All right, let's focus on that story out of the Eastern Cape then. The Social Development Department is part of the various government departments which have been responding to the tragic mass killing of 18 people in Lusigisigi in the Eastern Cape. Residents of Nyati village in Ngobozana told media that they heard multiple gunshots at about 2 a.m. on Saturday, but couldn't figure out which homes they were emanating from. The Provincial Social Development Department has intervened to provide support to those traumatized by the incident. And for more on that, I'm joined by Mzukisi Simelane, who is the Director of Communications for the Eastern Cape Social Development Department. Good morning to you, Mzu, and I've got to thank you for your time. So what kind of social interventions are necessary that you are providing at this moment, given the size and scale and the depth of the trauma that has been suffered by members of the community in that area?
Julie, good morning, and good morning to your listeners. We want to begin by obviously, voicing our condolences from the side of the MSC and the side of the department. Immediately after we've heard and we received reports of this tragedy, our social workers descended on the scene, and obviously, as you understand, there are different phases of the intervention. So we got in, we sent in our social workers, and they are still there. In the space. To assist, the family, and obviously because it's a tragedy that has had, different reverberations across the community. So it might not necessarily have affected, and impacted on the directly on the families, but it might have affected and impacted to the entire community. So social workers have been working with the families and also working within that community. We have allowed the processes of the police because, as you understand, it's quite a huge incident and tragedy. So police obviously are still very much involved. So social workers are also playing around for different forms of interventions because trauma affects people differently. It also affects communities differently. So social workers have been assisting, directly the families to go through the process, because obviously you allow it. I mean, there are different phases of your intervention. It's an assessment phase, the fact-finding phase, because obviously the assumption is that everyone is traumatized, but trauma will happen at different phases and also at different stages as you go through the...
I imagine that over and above the psychosocial needs that members of the community may have, there are also material needs, right? The scale of the burials that will need to be undertaken will require your department to assess and see where it's possible to provide interventions materially.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, that is the point where I wanted to get into, because there are different phases of a tragedy. So you will understand, when Atula, that it's not only the department. So there are other players who will probably come in, the local municipality and other, government departments and people, I mean, private people generally. So those material needs will include all those stakeholders. And obviously the assessment, I mean, what is important at this time is to walk the people through the tragedy, and also issues of identifying bodies will also require social workers, because obviously people, when they go and identify bodies, and there is also an additional form of a trauma that takes place. So the material needs might come in later on. Yeah. But what is important now is probably the part of walking people through, the tragedy itself. And obviously, as we go along, there might be those material needs and, issues of burials. So we will be working with other stakeholders. It's not only the Department of Social Development, but we also invite other people to come and play their part.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That is Thulasizwe Simelane, who is the Director of Communications for the Department of Social Development in the Eastern Cape. Let's continue with that conversation. I'm joined now by Kuselwa Ranki, who is the Head of Communications in the Eastern Cape Premier's Office. Good morning to you, Kuselwa, and I've got to thank you for your time. I do need to ask where the Premier is and when he will be visiting the affected families.
Good morning to you, Thulasizwe, and to your listeners. The Premier is currently on his way to Sikisiki Ngobozana location, where he will be joining the Police Minister, and we're expecting that they will first have their own briefing as government get to understand where we are at this point with the management of the incident, including the investigations that are underway currently. And we expect that thereafter they will be visiting the crime scene, engage with families on the ground, and later engage with the broader community of Lusikisiki as part of Thulasizwe ensuring that government does not only talk about standing with those communities, but is amongst the communities as they go through this grief, and they come to terms with what has occurred over the weekend. An incident, Thulasizwe, that is of a large scale and nature, right, if you look at what has happened post-democracy in South Africa.
Kuselwa, what will you say to those who say that the very fact that this incident happened at all, especially in the context of the timeline of mass shootings in the Eastern Cape that I gave earlier on in this hour, that the fact that it happened at all at this scale represents a significant failure of the government crime prevention strategy, especially rural crime prevention strategy?
Thulasizwe government has been at work in terms of managing crime right across the province. But what we are facing, and in particular, if you look at this year, is that we finding crime that manifests itself in different forms. And whilst you are in the last week or last month or so, we had been dealing quite extensively with the issue of extortion. In the previous months, we were dealing with the issues around cash in transit. But what we are beginning to see, Thulasizwe, is that the interventions that are being implemented are assisting in terms of arresting those and dealing with those that are behind those incidents. What we need to improve on, if I may say, Thulasizwe, is ensuring that we strengthen our crime intelligence, ensuring that our police are able to work much closer with the communities such that, Thulasizwe, we are able to foil these incidents before they happen. I think, Thulasizwe, we are past the stage where, as community members, we can afford to sit and watch some funny business happening in our communities without alerting the police. I think we need to make sure that at the very onset of something that looks like it may be crime, we better report those incidents to the police so that the police may be able to follow up on those matters.
I hear what you're saying, Kuselwa, but let me ask you just lastly, in as far as establishing policing in rural areas, I suggest to you that that's one of your key areas of failure. I take the point you're making about crime prevention, the community being involved, crime intelligence, etc. But simply put, many villages and smaller towns and areas, areas in the Eastern Cape, the distances they have to traverse to get to the nearest police station remain significant, and therefore without police visibility, buggies of police driving in a village, crime will happen because there's enough time and opportunity for criminals to plan and execute. And I think that's a key cog that's missing in this machinery.
Thulasizwe, in the last term of administration, you would have noted that there has been a significant progress made in improving our rural crime strategy, and that included exactly what you're talking about, setting up police stations in those communities, working with the traditional leaders and ensuring that at almost all our kingdoms there is a satellite office of police so that there is that visibility on the ground. If you look at even Lusikisiki itself, it's only in the last term that Lusikisiki was, the police station in that area was greatly improved. Yes, there are challenges on the ground when it relates to sometimes vehicles, but this is something that the provincial government, working with the Ministry of Police, is closely looking at. The Premier has been engaging with the Minister, ensuring that there are additional resources like the technical teams, helicopters and everything else to improve crime management in the province.
I've got to leave it there. That's Kuselwa Ranki, who is the head of communications in the Eastern Cape Premier's office, joining us here on the Morning Brief. As you heard, the Premier preparing to visit that area in Lusikisiki, where 18 people were gunned down.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
At Business Outsurance, ensuring your business is our business. Switch to Business Outsurance today, and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. Get affordable cover to protect your business against everyday risks. Get the best business insurance at the best price for your business. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers, are only interested in lifting up their third consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies, want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN 8 final. Wafa Wafa! Catch the reigning champs, Orlando Pirates, up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday, 5 October at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
An item of political news now, and the chairperson of the African National Congress in Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, says there is no division between the national and provincial ANC. Lesufi was responding to the Democratic Alliance Federal Council Chair, Helen Zille, following her claims that Lesufi and his leadership in Gauteng were defying the ANC's national leadership by supporting the removal of former Tshwane Mayor, the DA's Thulasizwe Brink. Panyaza Lesufi joins me now on the line to take that conversation forward. Good morning to you, Mr. Lesufi. So Helen Zille is adamant that not only does she know, she has internal knowledge that actually you are defying the national leadership on this particular matter.
Good morning, Thulas. I think let me start by congratulating you. I don't think I've ever spoken to you ever since you've taken this particular slot.
I appreciate it.
I think, Thulas, it's an unfortunate reaction from the Democratic Alliance. I really feel that they are barking at the wrong tree and crying at the wrong funeral. All the decisions that we've taken in the African National Congress, we've done so after consultation with the national leadership. Actually, in most instances, if not all, they took over even the negotiations from us and conducted the negotiations directly from national with the Democratic Alliance. It's only when they reached a deadlock that they then gave us the go-ahead to implement a recommendation that they felt that was in the best interest of the ANC. But it's surprising because when the Premier of the Northern Cape, for example, was elected, the Democratic Alliance, and that was immediately after they signed the same agreement they're talking about, the Democratic Alliance contested the leadership of the Premier with the EFF, that they've got the guards to come and say, we don't want to work with them, want to work with the EFF, when they themselves jointly with the EFF didn't to support Dr. Saul in Northern Cape. But we are resolute. There's one ANC. It's not going to happen that they're trying to divide us. They can insult us as they wish. But we work with the ANC. We respect our leadership, and we know how best to deal with issues in the African National Congress.
So if you are as aligned with the national leadership, and I'm playing devil's advocate here, why does it seem that the decisions you are taking on Tshwane go against the tide of the conversation that had started, that said in the context of the government of national unity, it might be a good idea to support the objectives of the GNU by providing stability, even if it means collaborating across the municipalities where there was no clear winner? Why does that decision seem to go against that?
Well, that's the decision of the National Working Committee of the ANC, as I said. I want to even know if the National Working Committee of the ANC took this decision to spite the DA or any other party, and I doubt. Personally, for example, the same period or the same week where these discussions were taking place, I was not even in the meetings. I was not even in the country. I was on an investment mission in Germany. And for the DA to assume that I was in meetings that took decisions, and I was in meetings that defied, it's clear, it's illogical. It's not true. And the reality is, when they want to talk to me, they talk to me. So in secret, they talk to me, and then publicly they condemn me because before I left, they came to me to plead with me that they wanted to postpone the motion because they wanted to go to court to challenge the motions. And I told them there's no need for them to go to court. If we have to delay the motion until we have discussions, we can do so. I'm not...
Sorry, I've got to press you on one issue before I let you go. The DA says they will be fielding Thulasizwe Brink one more time, and basically Helen Zille is basically putting an ultimatum to say with support to the ANC, support this move to reinstate Thulasizwe Brink, or else your attitude might affect the stability where you need our support in other municipalities. What do you say to that?
It's very unfortunate again. I mean, check in the Western Cape, they're colliding or colluding with other political parties to take out the African National Congress. They're doing the same in many other provinces. So, but our attitude is very simple in the ANC. We'll work with anyone. We've opened up the negotiations. We're starting the engagement with all the relevant parties. And at the right moment, the national leadership will once more guide us to say, after all these negotiations, or after we have presented a report to them on the negotiations and engagements that we're involved in now, we'll be in a position to take a decision. But the African National Congress is not going to be intimidated, and the African National Congress is not going to be coerced to take a particular decision.
I've got to leave it there. Thank you so much. That's Panyaza Lesufi, who is the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, lawyers for the Thulasizwe political party have written to the Judicial Service Commission seeking a postponement of the next sitting of the JSC this month. It follows an interim interdict granted by a full bench of the Western Cape High Court, which holds Dr. John Hlophe from participating in the JSC sitting, pending a review of his designation to the JSC. Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Mahile says motorists who paid for e-tolls will not be refunded, and data released by the South African Reserve Bank shows that private sector credit in the country increased by 4.9% year-on-year in August of this year, from a 5-month low of a 3.5% rise in the previous month. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour.
It's a very busy Tuesday morning. Hopefully you're not leaving it too late before you get into it, because you will be surprised. We are back to school and we are back to traffic just like that. Pretoria, the N1 South, pretty heavy. There's a crash scene just down by the R21 where the lane closures are. That's causing a delay all the way back through to Garsfontein Road. The N12 in from Benoni is slow after an earlier crash at Atlas Road, but it is starting to move. And there's just been a crash down by Spruitview, the N3 North, just starting to backlog. Off the highways is protesting in Steeldale, so between Alberton and City Deep, trying to avoid Heidelberg Road this morning. There's a lot of congestion in that area. Also a crash on the Mike 1 down by the Houghton Estate area. That collision scene just by Houghton Drive, so coming from Sandton on your way through to Joburg, that's all pretty heavily backed up today. Two major problems on routes getting out of Durban to Pinetown. One is the N3, a crash at the M13, Paradise Valley. You're sitting back as far as Pavilion, and if you're on the M7 into Pinetown, that's really heavy this morning from North Dean, North Park, all the way through Hunts Detman towards the N3. So your two big highways into Pinetown are absolutely jam-packed. Very busy around Cape Town's Mitchell's Plain area. A crash in the roadworks, AZ Berman at Highlands Drive, just causing some extra delays. And the N1, if you're on that route inbound, you're going to sit from Plattercliff Hill all the way through to the Cooper. Get a change. More queues through Woodstock in towards the city centre. It is a busy Tuesday. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning to you once again. So after the Rugby Championship, the Springboks move on to other things, and I see that a tour to the UK, Scotland, England and Wales is on the cards.
That's right, Thulas. The Springboks have been on fire this season. 8 wins so far. And yes, the November tour is on the horizon. As you said, they'll be taking on Scotland, England and Wales. The big question is, can they finish the year strong and bring home a clean sweep for South Africa? I mean, they've been absolutely flawless this 2024 international rugby season, winning 8 out of their 10 games. Their only losses came by a single point against Ireland and Argentina in matches where luck played a major role. They are gearing up for their November tour, and they're looking to continue their winning momentum with stars like Apelele Fasi shining and the return of key players like Damian Willemse. The squad rotation has been a key factor in their success, and they're looking to end 2024 on a high note. So I think our celebrating journey is not over just yet. We'll move to this news. AmaZulu announcing the decision to part ways with head coach Pablo Franco Martin and assistant Eto van Ben after 3 games into the season. Usutu, they lost all 3 opening matches, losing 2-1 to Polokwane City, 3-1 to Kaizer Chiefs and 1-0 to Marumo Gallants. The poor start has caused the club to part ways with their Spanish coach with immediate effect. Martin was in charge of 39 games, winning 12, drawing 12 and losing 15. Soccer news elsewhere. Real Madrid have named Kylian Mbappe in their squad to face Lille in the Champions League tomorrow after he missed one match with a thigh injury. The French forward was expected to be out until the upcoming international break, but appears to have made a quick recovery. Mbappe sustained the problem last Tuesday in their La Liga win over Alaves and was unavailable for Sunday's 1-1 derby draw at Atletico Madrid. Motorsport news. Renault have confirmed the cancellation of their plans to supply engines for the 2026 Formula One season and beyond. The French manufacturer announced that its engine factory would be transformed into an engineering center for excellence, and that was at the end of 2024. The decision comes ahead of the introduction of new engine regulations to F1 in 2026, with the Renault Group-owned Alpine team now expected to agree to a deal to have power units supplied by Mercedes. The announcement follows months of speculation and unrest at the company, which saw staff members travel to the Italian Grand Prix during the summer to protest the developing plans to close the factory. And tennis news. The world number one, Yannick Sinner, says that he is in a very difficult moment, enduring sleepless nights over his doping case. The 23-year-old is under the microscope anew after the World Anti-Doping Agency said that it was seeking a ban of up to 2 years after he tested positive for traces of the steroid clostebol in March. The International Tennis Integrity had cleared the Italian of wrongdoing in August, and weeks later, he won the US Open for his second major title. The ITIA accepted Sinner's explanation that the drug entered his system when his physiotherapist used a spray containing it to treat a cut and then provide the massage and sports therapy to Yannick Sinner. We'll keep a close eye on these and other stories. For SAFM Sport, I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's bring in Dowling Lechela once again. And Dowling, SA Taxi is a key cog within the taxi industry, assisting with finance and insurance and the likes. I see that there's a change of ownership there.
Yes, so as SA Taxi being owned by Transaction Capital, and Transaction Capital undergoing major changes, the company is selling its majority stake in SA Taxi to the current management team, Mobilize, and former R&B executive Martin Oberholster. This move is part of Transaction Capital's restructuring efforts due to, the struggles SA Taxi has been facing with South Africa's weak economy and high interest rates. As part of those changes, Transaction Capital will rename itself to Newton Limited. This will result in a number of executive changes as well. Company CFO and debt officer will resign next year, and the current CEO, Jonathan Jono, will step down as chairperson and director of SA Taxi, but will continue as the CEO of Transaction Capital. Oberholster, who's part of the team acquiring that SA Taxi unit, will become SA Taxi's independent non-executive chairperson. Now, Transaction Capital will retain 26.6% of its 75 stake in SA Taxi, but will value it at zero. The company's focus will shift to non-performing loan portfolio acquisitions and collections through its subsidiary Newton. Newton aims to raise about R1 billion in new funding, with 700 million already secured. As mentioned, the sale really significant and one of many steps Transaction Capital has taken to restructure the business. Earlier this year, we even saw it unbundle and list We Buy Cars to unlock further value for shareholders.
And in the telecom sector, the takeover of Telemasters is making some progress, is it?
That's right. Now, the firm may soon have new owners. The local telecoms company is progressing with a potential deal where its two largest shareholders are considering selling their stakes to a BEE investor. Now, following a non-binding expression of interest in July, the acquirer has completed due diligence and is now waiting on funding approval from lenders. The transaction, subject to certain conditions, could lead to a change of control and trigger a mandatory offered to remaining shareholders on the same terms. According to local takeover rules, acquiring over 35% of a company's shares necessitates a mandatory offer to all shareholders. Now, this announcement has sparked concerns about a potential delisting. No formal announcement has been made from the group, but analysts have noted that companies operating in the similar industries as Telemaster have delisted after buyout deals were concluded. This includes companies like Alviva, which was acquired and delisted last year. The same thing happened to Adapt IT in 2022.
All right, recap for us then the U.S. close, Asian markets, and how the JSE closed yesterday.
Kicking things off in Asia, those markets upbeat with Japanese stocks leading the gains. The Nikkei up almost 2%. Traders there are assessing the latest comments from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He has warned that the central bank won't be as aggressive as markets had initially expected. Powell's latest address also influencing U.S. markets. Futures are in the red, reversing yesterday's gains. Back at home, sentiment really sour with the all-share closing over 1% lower, this being fueled by a near 2% decline in the Resources 10 complex. The rand also trading weaker but still at strong levels, trading under the 17 rand 50 mark to the dollar. We are seeing that global rally just cooling off and some profit taking playing out as well.
All right, thank you for that. Ndawuleng Lechela will be back with one more update for you just after 8:30 and ahead of the opening of the JSE. She will have an update for you on all things to do with business, the economy, as well as the markets here on the Morning Brief.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Win your share of 50,000 Rand when you play Winning at Live with One Life. Don't forget to enter on our website, safm.co.za. Stay tuned to the Morning Brief on SAFM. Keep your phone on loud and we might be the one to change your life. One Life is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives.
Masanda Wane ladies want to rubber stamp their authority with maximum points to stay on the summit. But Copper Belt ladies want to fight with all they have to move away from the bottom half. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Witness the Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game, Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC versus Copperbelt Ladies FC on Saturday 5 October at 11 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Sipho, good morning. I've got to thank you for your time. So, we as South Africans are no strangers to tensions between a president and his deputy. I see that Kenya is having its own moment, William Ruto and his deputy, and that's coming to a head now.
Refreshing morning, Thulas, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Indeed, Thulas, when you look at the rift between the Deputy President, Rigata Gachagua, he's been, this issue of the protest of the tax bill that was before Parliament, he was accused for being one of the leaders who was showing a contestation from the civil society against government. But he has also said that it will be the president who can assent to that signature, because members of parliament yesterday to us were saying that there will be a motion that will be pushed of no confidence against the deputy president. And when you look, he's one of the person who can stay, others are saying, a serious headache to Ruto, because he's coming from the popular central region of Kenya. And that's how, when you see at the shuffle that happened in June by William Ruto, it did not affect the office of the vice president or the deputy president.
Turning to Angola now, Sipho, I see that Isabel dos Santos wants her money, but the courts in the UK are saying no ways.
This is a long story that comes from, we can say, 2012, 2013. He was a director of Unitel, one of the telecoms operator in Angola. But this daughter of the late president of Angola, he has been termed as the first female billionaire, has been having challenges with his assets that others are saying that he has accrued all those assets through embezzlement and corruption from Angola. But now the companies that are suing him are saying that he needs to pay what it was an amount of money that was supposed to be paid, almost 300 million pounds that was outstanding, and hence the freezing of his assets. Then he fails now, yesterday in the London High Court in terms of asking for the appeal to overturn the freezing of almost 580 million pounds. You look at those monies, Thulas, and you look at the state of poverty in the SADC region or in Angola, it is worrying.
And in the Great Lakes region, the focus is on the DRC and the UN's mission there. I think it's called MONUSCO, if I'm not mistaken, in my recollection. I see that they've got a new leader in as far as the Force Intervention Brigade is concerned.
No, correctly, Thulas. The MONUSCO has been there for some time, but it is phasing out, as we know, that we have the SADC mission in the DRC, but the Force Intervention Brigade, the FIB, has been led by South Africa, Tanzania, and Malawi. So Malawi is taking over the command in terms of the Malawi General Richard Kachaonapanja, who's leading it now in terms of the last phase now of MONUSCO coming out of the DRC. It is coincident also that the three countries I've mentioned, they are also part of the SADC mission in the DRC, which is also expected to come to an end by the end of the year. So the SADC mission is also have to come in when MONUSCO is being removed. These are long missions in the DRC, Thulas, for our listeners. It dates back from the 60s during the time of Lumumba until today.
And in Mozambique, Sipho, I see we're counting down to the elections, about 8 days or so to go, and the Electoral Commission is moving to allay any worries about vote rigging.
That is quite true. Bishop Carlos Matrine, who's the chairperson of the National Election Commission of Mozambique, he was in Tanzania over the weekend, and he says that elections will take place every corner of Mozambique. Despite that, we know that the north part, Cabo Delgado, is one of the areas where they will have to have more security enforcement, electoral material being delivered on time there. But also he did mention that there was another challenge to us. They need more money as the Electoral Commission to deliver these elections. Despite that, they had a cyber attack. And once you have a cyber attack to us on your cyber, on your what you call technological infrastructure website of the Electoral Commission, it is worrying. It will be coming what we have seen in Kenya during William Ruto and Odinga, where they say the computer will calculate the numbers of the votes. So Mozambique is having those challenges in terms of electoral fund, but they are saying political climate is very conducive.
Yeah, it's one of those realities of the modern world, Sipho, that some of the threats are not just mere physical force, but actually can be cyber security threats that can threaten the conduct of elections.
Absolutely.
Lastly, in your historical archives, you're taking us to 1 October 1987. What happened particularly in the then Transkei?
That is 37 years ago, when there was a coup that overthrew the George Matanzima, and it was led by the current Deputy Minister of Defense. I think we need to invite General Holomisa on the show to us, and we ask him about the coups that are taking place in the then homeland compared to the coups that are in the Sahel. Are they real coups in the Sahel, or what happened? But this day, General Holomisa led that military coup in 1987, and it was around the issues of corruption. Other leaders were kept under house arrest, Deputy Prime Minister, the Ministers of Justice, but those are the homeland politics of the TPVC stage. But like I said, to us, it's a challenge. Invite General one day to share those moments.
How to stage a successful coup.
And maybe of the GNU, he might also...
Oh, yeah. We don't want that. We don't want that. Not in that sense, at least. All right, that's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update, giving you a sense and a flavor of some of the stories that are developing across our continent.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just out into the Eastern Cape, an urgent announcement if you're driving between Mdantsane and Hemingway's. Protest this morning blocking the N2. So if you're heading out from sort of the Northeast Expressway side, sort of central East London down to Hemingway, should be taken off there. And also coming in from Mdantsane, looks like you're off at the main road, the Amalinda main road. So just factor in some queue time on those alternative routes through the area. Pretoria today, fairly heavily backed traffic. There's been a crash on Solomon Mashlangu at Old Farm Road, so some delays there. There's a bit of pressure on the N1 from Atterbury moving down towards the R21. That's a crash scene that's holding things up. And the N14 looking fairly heavy. This is the Krugersdorp Highway between the R55 and Brockfontein. If you're on your way to Pretoria, that's heavy. Also factor in a lot of queue time this morning on the Mopari Highway leaving Shoshanguve. You're going to be asked to sit in some heavy traffic down towards the N4. Protesting in the Steeldale area. If you move between Alberton and City Deep, probably a good idea to avoid that. Some very heavy backlogging. You'll feel the effects of it right back on the R59 through Reading onto South Rand Road, onto Heidelberg Road, and then into that Steeldale area. It's all very heavily backed up as a result of that protest. Going out of Durban towards Pinetown, the N3 stays heavy with a crash in the roadworks at Paradise Valley. That's a big queue from Pavilion Mall. The alternative M7 into Pinetown also has been really busy this morning from Queensborough out through Hunt Stepman with queues down towards the N3 highway. Cape Town Marine Drive excessively backed from Sunningdale all the way through to about Woodbridge Island. There's hardly any gaps in that traffic this morning. Baden-Powell Drive getting up towards the N2 highway from the Khayelitsha side. That's busy. And if you're heading on the South Peninsula, Main Road again is queuing up. It's been absent since schools have been closed, but as they reopen Main Road going out of Muizenberg through St James on your way to Fish Hooks, quite slow. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Health experts say that taking care of your baby starts the day you learn you have conceived. Changes should start immediately, from what you eat to how you take care of yourself. After you've delivered your baby, does the worry stop? No, it doesn't. From there, it's clinic visits, breastfeeding, introducing solids, and the list goes on. If you're a mom, father, or caregiver and are curious on how to support your kids' development to reach their full potential, or even concerned about the nutrition that strengthens their bodies, then our new SABC Education feature, Side by Side, is for you. Get all the advice you need from the Department of Health by tuning in every Wednesday and Thursday at 2:30 p.m. on The Full Circle on SAFM, starting in October. Tune into the feature and you could win 1,000 Rand with our monthly competition. Side by Side, brought to you by SABC Education on SAFM, leading the conversation.
Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers are only interested in lifting up their third consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies, want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN 8 final. Wafa Wafa. Catch the reigning champs Orlando Pirates up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday 5 October at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Did you know that 80% of South Africa's barley is sold to the beer industry? This locally sourced barley, along with other natural ingredients, play a vital role in beer production, contributing 2.2 billion rand to the country's agricultural GDP. Join South African breweries on the 3rd of October in Caledon as we dive into the state of the beer economy. SAB, brewing a future full of cheers. South Africa, be sharp, not for sale to persons under 18.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's lead the conversation together now. Let's go to your calls at this moment. Let's start in Lusigisigi and speak to Fezile. In Johannesburg, rather. Fezile wants to talk about the incident and the mass shooting in Lusigisigi. Good morning to you, Fezile.
Kunjani bhuti?
Ngiyaphila kunjani bhuti?
Ngiyaphila uvezile Nkandela.
Yes sir.
Yes bhuti. Bhuti benifuna nje ukuthi kancane inkinga ese-Eastern Cape ayikho lusikisiki kuphela. Labantu abashonile lusikisiki e-Eastern Cape ungareporta emapoliseni. Akunamapolisa azohamba ayolungisa inkinga eyenzeka kuleyo ndawo eniwabiza kuyo. Kuzoqhubeka bhuti kwenzeka ngale ndlela kwenzeka ngayo. Ngoba ndikhuluma nawe nje lapha kula side le la kuqumbu.
kudutyulwe umuntu phaphuti kunabantu abaphatha ibhamu phaya abahlala ehlathini kudubulwe umuntu kwilali abayibiza ngokuthi kusemagxeni kuqumbu washona lo muntu udutyulwe nge-16 kaJulayi washona nge-18 kaJulayi wangcwatshwa nge-3 kaAugust lo muntu lowo bhuti akunamuntu oboshiwe kunanamhlanje kuzohlala kukhulunywa kanje bhuthula la Eastern Cape akunamuntu othatha inxaxheba ngento yenzeka kuleyanto yala Eastern Cape anankinga nalento yokukhulunywa ngezibhamu ekuthiwa zisebantwini akumele yes izibhamu bekumele zibe semapoliseni kodwa amapolisa waqumbu akukho nto ayenzayo ngalona
ndiyakuva Fezile
kukhona i-police station eyasesulenkama ekude kufishi nale ndawo esikhuluma ngayo koqumbu napha koKalankomo ngale abantu bayashiswa bhuti wami lapha yangama-ayini bangenele ebusuku belele bapokothelwe kuplug i-ayini ye-electricity kufuna imali yabo ogogo nomkhulu.
All right, Ndikvile Fezile, thank you so much for that call. That is Fezile in Joburg talking about the situation in the Eastern Cape and basically just sharing that frustration and saying that there's non-responsiveness in as far as the police are concerned in particular parts of the Eastern Cape and giving examples of shootings that he says have happened and have not been resolved in some of the villages in the Eastern Cape. Let's speak to Dintwe in Tabanchu. And Dintwe, you also want to weigh in on the issue of crime. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulas. Yeah, no, the thing that is that we ought and we must accept as South Africa that the crime has gone out of control and we can't arrest the crime. And if we are not going to accept that, this is going to continue. You see, in the olden days, we had so-called impimpis, informers now that will tell the police where the crime or where the criminals are. But the problem now is these days, you didn't tell the police that there's a criminal there. The police will tell the criminal that didn't has given us information. That is why people are so reluctant and afraid of giving the police information. And what the government must do, I mean, we are in a technological world now. Why can't the government start implementing technology to assist the police in arresting the crime? No, what I can say, I'm a farmer. Some white farmers or commercial farmers, all over the roads, their farms are cameras, and that has reduced crime in their farms. It's only with us that we are unable to put on those cameras that stock theft and all these things are still happening in our farms. But if the government can implement technology to help the police with this crime, and so we can go a very long way.
All right, thank you for that solid suggestion there from Dintwe that let's incorporate technology into the battle against crime, and basically saying that the crime is out of control and therefore requires, what was that word? Concomitant response from our government, which according to Dintwe must include incorporating the use of technology. You are starting to see some provinces, I know Gauteng has been talking about incorporating technology into the fight against crime, but we're not seeing enough of that, I would say. Another issue that was raised, of course, is about the safety of informers, and I think that talks to crime intelligence and the professionalism really and handling the position of informers who are critical in the gathering of intelligence in crime intelligence. All of those are conversations that we must now bring front and center as we demand that crime be confronted concomitantly. And that brings us to 8 a.m., time for us to check in with the news. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, MK Party seeks postponement of JSC sitting and Israel launches ground raids against Hezbollah. Good morning. Lawyers for the Thulasizwe political party have written to the Judicial Service Commission seeking a postponement of the next sitting of the JSC this month. It follows an interim interdict granted by a full bench of the Western Cape High Court, which holds Dr. John Hlophe from participating in the JSC sitting, pending a review of his designation to the JSC. The JSC is expected to hold its next sitting from the 7th to the 11th of this month. Kenny Mapanga reports.
In the letter to the JSC dated 30 September 2024, attorneys on behalf of the MK Party contend that the effect of the interdict renders the JSC improperly constituted. As a result, pending the review of Dr. Hlophe's designation to the JSC, the MK is seeking a postponement of the October sitting of the JSC and have further demanded a response by Tuesday, the 1st of October 2024, failing which, the party is expected to take further legal steps.
Gauteng Finance MEC Lebogang Maile says motorists who paid for e-tolls will not be refunded. He addressed the media in Johannesburg yesterday on the Gauteng government's plan to settle the 12.9 billion rand debt owed by the provincial government to roads agency SANRAL for the e-tolls. Maile says the first installment of 3.8 billion rand, which comprises 3.2 billion rand in historical debt and 546 million rand of the maintenance portion, has already been paid.
When people were paying for e-tolls, remember it was legal, it was not illegal. And they were paying because they were utilizing the service. So they will not be paid back because it was not illegal. Their money was not collected illegally by government. So I think that will be the answer to that.
A cultural expert and anthropologist will continue on the witness stand when the Bavenda kingship battle continues in the High Court in Polokwane in Limpopo. Prince Tony Mpepu Ramabulana's lawyer will start with his cross-examination. The throne became vacant after Princess Masindi Mpepu successfully challenged her uncle King Tony Mpepu Ramabulana in the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court referred the matter back to the lower court. Michael Makungo reports.
Princess Masindi Mpepu's lawyer, Alan Dodson, has concluded to cross-examine cultural expert and anthropologist Professor Ferrero Machiza. Professor Machiza's testimony was on the marriage of a kindred wife. Prince Tony Mpepu, Ramabulana's lawyer, Ravele will start with his cross-examination. Mpepu Ramabulana was stripped of his kingship by the Supreme Court of Appeal in a judgment which ordered the withdrawal of his recognition certificate about 3 years ago.
Main Reef Road in the Vleerhof area west of Johannesburg is inaccessible to traffic due to protest by residents. The community is staging a shutdown to protest the lack of infrastructure and poor service delivery in the area. It says numerous attempts to engage with local government officials have failed, with residents' concerns falling on deaf ears. Vleerhof community leader Sal Bilishaba says the community is frustrated with the absence of essential facilities like clinics, schools and a police station.
We started around 4 o'clock in the morning. We are protesting on Main Reef. We've closed down Main Reef that is passing through Vleerhof. The primary things will be, we've been negotiating with government and asking for them to build infrastructure like schools. Vleerhof Primary School is already over 13 years where the school has been on containers and there's never been anything to show that the government is serious in building a proper school for us. And then we don't have any clinic, there's no sports facilities, there is nothing in Vleerhof.
And finally, Israel says it's launched a limited ground offensive against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The Israeli military said the operation was localized and targeted and was backed by airstrikes and artillery fire. The BBC's Joe Floto has the details.
We've had a few reactions from Hezbollah in the form of missiles being fired into the north of Israel, about 10 projectiles in the last hour into the area of Mount Meron. There's a military base there. There have also been a couple of explosions reported near Tel Aviv, but anticipated from everyone is a much larger reaction to the fact that there are Israeli boots on the ground in Lebanon. That's something that Hezbollah has been training for and anticipating. Whether or not they've got the capacity to fight back, given the relentless nature of the last 2 weeks of attack on the leadership, on their infrastructure, on their communications and on their weaponry, well, that's what we're going to find out in the next few hours and days.
Recapping the top story, lawyers for the Thulasizwe political party have written to the Judicial Service Commission seeking a postponement of the next sitting of the JSC. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43187. Outsurance Essential is low-cost insurance for older cars. A 34-year-old woman pays only 373 rand a month for her 2007 white Mazda 2 1.3 dynamic and gets paid cash so she can choose her own panel beater after an accident. Get the cover you need. Get Outsurance Essential today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 125,000 rand. It's time to switch and save. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still a good idea to avoid Steeldale, south of Joburg, between City Deep and Alberton. Protesters this morning blocking off the section of Heidelberg Road and forcing some quite heavy traffic on local alternatives. The crash at Atlas Road on the N12 had been cleared. It's been replaced by a broken down vehicle. So net result coming out of Benoni at Stay Slow, and a lot of traffic on the Mike 1 this morning from Boysons all the way through to basically Grayston Drive. Before you're out of that, expect some delays on the N14 up towards the N1 Brockfontein interchange, and expect delays on the mighty Mopani Highway as you leave Shoshingu. They're going to be asked to send some very heavy traffic down to about the N4 split. Going out of Durban, a crash at Paradise Valley, so that's a big queue. Approaching Pinetown, the crash in the roadwork, so traffic back to Pavilion. Also, if you're on your way to the airport, there's been a collision between Mshlanga and Subaya, and that's quite heavy. That's also crash scene in the roadworks as well. Cape Town traffic this morning, Marine Drive, pretty solid from Bayside through to around about sort of Boundary Road. A little gap at Milnerton, but it is a very busy run through. And a reminder of some protesting which may still have you being diverted on the N2, top of East London. Protesters burning tyres earlier between Ndatsani and Hemingway's Mall. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SAFM Sports headlines. It's cricket. Cricket South Africa confirming a 2-match test series against Bangladesh starting on the 21st of October. And in rugby, the Springboks are eyeing a clean sweep as they gear up for a tough UK tour. Details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief, the Tuesday edition. It's good to have you with us. A number of conversations that are on the go over the last 2 hours. We were talking a bit earlier on about the crime situation generally in the country, but also reacting and responding to the mass shooting that happened over the weekend at a village in Lusigisigi. 18 people gunned down, and the government authorities there are now responding, the provincial government and national government visiting the families, we understand, today, but also South Africans just generally weighing in on the crime situation and what solutions could be put into play to push back against rampant crime and violent crime in particular, and the prevalence of guns, firearms in our society. A bit earlier on, we did have a conversation about, what has been a rather grim week in the United States as far as the death penalty is concerned. The United States has had this coincidence of, 5 executions occurring within a space of 6 days and across 5 states. And that has not happened in about 20 years. Amnesty International tells us that the number of countries that are implementing the death penalty is on the decline, but it seems the frequency with which the death penalty is being carried out is actually increasing. You will know that a number of countries, many countries that actually have the death penalty, end up not really having to implement it that much, but it seems Amnesty International tells us that in the last year or so, that trend seems to be changing, and there are more and more executions. In this hour, one of the conversations we will have is with the organization Public Interest South Africa, talking about the role of whistleblowers. They continue to be on that campaign. There's been a lot of talk about the need to protect whistleblowers. Public Interest South Africa will tell us what they are doing to put shoulder to the wheel to support whistleblowers in the fight against corruption. I will take your calls on these and other stories on 086 000 2032. You can also send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. The third hour of the morning brief starts now.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's give away some money, shall we? A One Life policy can change everything. Stand a chance to win your share of 50,000 Rand and bonus prizes when you get a call to play Winning at Life with One Life right here on SAFM. All you have to do is enter on safm.co.za and increase your winnings by 2,000 Rand if you get an obligation-free One Life cover quote. One Life is a licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives. All right, let's welcome now today's player. That's Dumisani, not Data. Good morning to you, Dumisani.
Good morning, Thulas.
Are you ready to win at life with One Life Insurance?
Ready.
All right, let's play. Pick, you know how the game works, Dumisani? Pick one of the 5 boxes. So the boxes are 1, L, I, F, and E. Which box will you choose this morning?
There's an I in Dumisani.
What does that mean?
I, Thulas.
Is that the one you're going with?
Final winning answer, Thulas.
Final answer. You don't want to call a friend?
Final winning answer, Thulas.
Congratulations to you, Dumisani. You've won yourself 2,000 Rand.
Yay!
Now, tell me something, Dumisani. Did you get an obligation-free life cover quote from One Life Insurance?
Yes, I did, Thulas.
The news keeps getting better then for you, Dumisani. That's it. You get an extra 2,000 Rand for just opting in for an obligation-free life cover quote from One Life Insurance.
Yippee!
So your total winnings, you've won a total of 4,000 Rand in cash, all thanks to One Life Insurance, who is changing lives today. Congratulations to you.
Thanks, SAFM and One Life.
All right, thank you for that. That's Dumisani, not Data there. So if you want a chance to play Winning at Life with One Life, then go to our website and enter. Win your share of 50,000 Rand in cash. Well done to Dumisani. It's that easy. For your chance to win at Life with One Life Insurance, enter now.
Top Sport with Michael Abramson.
Sipiwe Tshabalala, former Kaizer Chiefs midfielder, Bafana international, who scored that wonder goal. Tshabalala, 50th cap, Tshabalala scored! Just tell me, when that ball came to you and you sort of looked up and thought, let me have a go, let me put this one, fire this one on goal, did you in your wildest dreams realize at that moment what the reaction might be, that ball nestling in the back of the net? I mean, I had to pinch myself.
What occurred on that day was the way we defended, the way we were patient, the way we were so organized, and as soon as we gained position, it was a quick transition. I think it took us less than 6 seconds, if I'm not mistaken, to score that goal. And I knew that the goalkeeper was off his line. Everything was so great. That's why it went straight to the corner.
Top Sport on SAFM. The Science of Life on SAFM.
So let's focus on one of those resources, in fact, a resource that we cannot survive without. Taps may not be running dry yet, but Gauteng is currently under level 1 water restrictions to manage its declining water supply. These measures are expected to last until March 2025, but South Africa is not alone in its water woes, as the world is facing an unprecedented water crisis, with global fresh water demand predicted to exceed supply by 40% by 2030. What does it all mean for water security for me and you? Let's bring into the conversation Kate Stubbs, who is Marketing Director at Interwaste. Good morning to you, Kate. I've got to thank you for your time. So what is the overall picture in as far as fresh water supply? We're told that, the demand will outstrip supply by about 40% by 2030.
Yeah, good morning. From a South African context, we are also, it's estimated that our demand will exceed supply by 15% by 2030, which is actually quite significant when you think that water is life, and absolutely all of us and every living thing on this, in our country needs water to survive. So South Africa is a water scarce country already. So we already have, water is already an extra precious resource for us. And I think the way we are managing our water, the way climate's affecting water, the population demands, and our water infrastructure, and a variety of issues are all culminating in the fact that we are already undergoing water crises in certain areas and need to urgently look at ways to start reducing our water consumption and protecting our fresh water sources.
Kate, when we talk fresh water supplies, what exactly are we talking about, and how does that fit in within the water supply value chain that ends up with me holding a glass in hand and drinking a glass of water?
Yeah, I think when we think where do we get our water from? Well, fresh water supply, as we're thinking of clean water that is already potable, that is clean and healthy and able, that we're able to consume. So most of our water are coming from our river, our waterways, and our dams. And unfortunately, those, if you look historically, have been set up in certain areas for catchments, and climate change has impacted where our rain is falling. So in some ways, we're already seeing less water being able to be captured in those areas. And then when we think about our fresh water, as you talk about, we've got to look at our water systems and our water treatment plants that are cleaning that water and making it available for us to use, and also obviously the infrastructure that is bringing that water to you in your home, in your tap. And over the last 10 years, if you look at the water reports from the Department of Water and Sanitation, there's a green drop, a blue drop, and a no drop report. The one measures water quality, the one measures sort of our water, the state of our water, wastewater treatment works in our systems, and the other is no drop, is leakage. And all of them have declined significantly over the last 10 years. So our water quality has declined, our water systems, half of our water wastewater treatment works are in a dire state. And just scarily too, on the no drop report in terms of leakages in our infrastructure has increased significantly. I mean, Gauteng alone has over 46% of non-revenue generated water just disappearing. So, that in itself is a big problem when we're already water scarce, and then 46% of our water that's already been treated and processed for consumption is actually being lost, probably due to leakage or its non-revenue source in the system.
Within our environment and human activity, what are some of the bigger threats to fresh water supplies?
So I mean, I will talk to you obviously from a waste management perspective.
Sure.
Waste unmanaged has a direct impact on our water systems. Waste unmanaged is going to cause pollution to soil, to water, and the air. And waste, when we talk about, it's not only our physical waste, not only our municipal solid waste from our homes, but also many industries, and most of us have wastewater in our homes and in our industries and our businesses. And that wastewater needs to be treated effectively so that it doesn't create pollution into our freshwater systems. So, managing your waste effectively from home to business to as a country is critically important to preventing environmental impacts and contaminating our water system. So they're quite closely related. And then, just managing our water as a whole, I think South Africans, interestingly, on a global average, people consume about 173 litres per day per capita, and in South Africa, we on per capita are consuming 217 litres. So even as a nation, we're not that respectful of our water, and I think, there's just attitude and behaviour change to starting to value fresh water as a more valuable resource.
In the last few years, Kate, when we faced the load shedding situation as well as the water cuts that were happening frequently, it became something that was encouraged, that people, where you can, get yourself a borehole and drill a borehole. And I'm wondering about the impact of all of that activity, because my understanding is that taps into the water table underneath the ground. All of that activity, how sustainable is it in terms of the work that South Africans have been doing, drilling boreholes and the likes?
Yeah, I think boreholes are important. We haven't actually accessed all of our groundwater, so using groundwater is an additional. What we talk about is we need to diversify our water mix. So utilizing our groundwater in certain instances is beneficial, is good. You can have the instance where lots of boreholes have been drilled that depletes the general water table in an area. I think. And also the other challenge with groundwater is we need to make sure that it's then safe for consumption, because it's being polluted by surface activities by us humans. But groundwater is certainly a mix that we need to incorporate.
Okay.
But also, for our side, we talk about wastewater. We have most of our sewage systems are driven by wastewater, and large industries, agriculture uses water, large industry uses water, and there's a huge opportunity for us to diversify our water mix and reuse that water. So treat that water and reuse it back into industry. Not all water has to be treated to potable, to clean standards for drinking. It certainly needs to be treated to safe standards for reuse, but you don't need to be doing industrial cleaning, for instance, with safe potable water. And that's where, the wastewater focus needs to be strongly looked at in order to diversify our water mix and put less pressure on our freshwater system.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and those perspectives. That's Kate Stubbs, who is Marketing Director at Interwaste, talking to us about the water management in our country, particularly the conversation around fresh water demand, which is predicted to outstrip supply within the next few years.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's bring you into the conversation now. Let's take some of your calls this morning. Let me speak to Churchill, who is in the Eastern Cape. Good morning to you, Churchill. You want to weigh in on the conversation around e-tolls?
Yes, Thulas. Thulas, there's something that I don't understand here. I've been listening to Lebohang Mayelo. In my understanding from the very beginning, the e-tolls, the reason why there was never support for the e-tolls, one of the reasons that there was never proper consultation. I don't know whether I'm right there.
Yes.
But now, how do you say, because if that was the case, it was a wrong project from the very beginning. Now, how do you say people are not going to be reimbursed for having paid for that project? And are you going to say to me, for those who did not pay, are they going to be pursued legally? This is what I don't understand the consistency here.
I hear you. And that's been a difficult conversation, Churchill, because there was a general defiance by most, Gauteng residents of the e-toll system. No matter how many times the demands were made for people to pay, people just did not pay. But there were, of course, a few who did pay, and we are being told that they will not be reimbursed.
I really don't understand. Until the Gauteng government considered that this was wrong.
Yeah.
In public, in my understanding. Now, how do you start to say people must pay for something that was instead of reimbursing them? Because it would mean now, even for those who did not pay, you need to pursue them legally.
I don't think your view would be very popular in Gauteng there, Churchill, that we should be pursued legally.
If they're saying those who actually paid, they are not going to be reimbursed for something that they admitted that it was wrong.
Yeah.
Then it would mean for those who did not pay, obviously something has to be done.
All right, I've got to thank you for your call this morning. That's Churchill out in the Eastern Cape talking about the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project, GFIP. otherwise known as the e-tolls, which has been scrapped, and the Gauteng government is now repaying the debt. The split there, 30% for the Gauteng provincial government and 70% for the national government in repaying that. Let me bring in Paul into the conversation, and Paul is in the Eastern Cape. Paul, you want to talk to me about crime in that province in the Eastern Cape. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulas. Thank you very much. Thulas, you mentioned something about the killings here in the Eastern Cape. One, the Fazakele brothers also that were killed.
Yes.
In the Eastern Cape. Now, let me briefly say to you that our police are not doing the work that they should do. I was one of those who assisted in the apprehension of the suspects in the case. But the police bungled the investigation and the suspects were let free. That's the first point. We also suggested to the minister, during the tenure of Minister Betty Kelly, he accepted a project which was proposed by the then General Richard Ndluli of appointing ex-police officers who's got expertise, who's got experience in everything. But unfortunately, Ndluli messed up the whole thing and appointed his brothers, sisters, and brothers-in-law and everybody. However, my take is that Central to do the same and appoint ex-police officers who's got experience, who are active to solve this crime here in South Africa.
All right, I've got to thank you for that, Paul. Unfortunately, I do have to move on. That's Paul in the Eastern Cape talking about crime and making practical suggestions of what needs to be followed in terms of dealing with the crime situation. Let me bring in Peter, who is in Limpopo. And Peter, you want to talk to me about the death penalty. Good morning to you.
Morning, sir.
Morning.
Yeah, these people of the Amnesty International, they've been lying to the world for a long time.
How now?
Since we got the freedom in 1994, they keep on saying now that the death penalty does not prevent crime, which is a lie. They talk about researches. Which research? Is it a qualitative research or quantitative research?
You don't believe that research that says there's no proof that it serves as a deterrent?
It's a lie. Let me give you an example. If you yourself, maybe you are a researcher, you go to Kosimampuru prison and interview the murderers there, the convicted murderers, whether about this death sentence, if it was implemented, should they have committed the crime?
But Peter, sorry, let me just butt in there. The death penalty would obviously apply to egregious and more serious crimes. But how do you explain then, how would it act as a deterrent for generally the commission of other crimes? Because I don't think every criminal commits a crime that warrants the death penalty, even in those countries where the death penalty is applied.
No, my point of departure is that if the death penalty can be implemented, capital punishment, it is going to reduce crime, because every living creature on earth, whether a human being or an animal, is afraid of death.
All right, Peter.
So they are telling us the lies. They talk about researches. Which research?
All right, Peter, I've got to leave it there. That's Peter in Limpopo saying he doesn't believe the research that is being cited by the likes of Amnesty International, saying that there's no proof that the death penalty curbs crime. Jonathan, short and sharp for me, please. You want to talk about the Eastern Cape killings?
Yes, quickly. I think our politicians are in touch with reality. They go to private, kids go to private schools, they go to private hospitals, they live in private estates with security. We're tired of condolences, we're tired of visits after the fact. I grew up my granny and my mom grew up in Shorterville in PE. It's like this movie, Will Smith, I'm Legend. At night, during the day, kids can walk in the streets, but at night, everybody has to be indoors. So I think, coming back just to the life in prison, my daughter asked me, Dad, I thought life in prison means the rest of your life. So I think instead of, I know we don't want to bring the death penalty back, but if it means life in prison, it should be the rest of your life you should remain in prison, and that could be a deterrent. Thank you.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's Jonathan out in Gqeberha talking about the killings and the crime and strategies to mitigate and fight crime in this country. Bringing us to 8:30, let's check in with N. Musa now with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, officials in Lebanon say more than 1,000 people have been killed in the past 2 weeks, while up to 1 million may now be displaced. This as the Israeli Defense Force say a limited, localized and targeted ground operation is underway against Hezbollah in the southern part of the country. Police have arrested over 10,000 suspects across the country during Operation Shanele over the last week for crimes such as murder, attempted murder, rape and assault. Some of the major highlights of the operation include the arrest of an 11th drug mule at OR Tambo International Airport in 2 months. And lawyers for the Thulasizwe political party have written to the Judicial Service Commission seeking a postponement of the next sitting of the JSC this month. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
The Mike 1 up to Santon, coming in from the south, really heavy this morning. It's traffic basically all the way through from Ormonde Gold Reef City territory. From that point, no gaps really until you get to about Greyston Drive in the Santon area. It's a very unusual backlog. The N3, a crash at London Road, so big traffic getting up from Galulis as you make your way through Edenvale towards that scene. Roadworks on the R21 between Bobsfontein and the Benoni exit, just starting to slow traffic. Just make sure you check before you travel. These days on the R21, you can very easily sometimes run into an hour's worth of backlog during the off-peak part of the day as they sort of strip you down to sort of one single lane there. The Olifantsfontein Road from Blue Hills coming out towards the M1 highway, ridiculous traffic. That route has a couple of lights down at Lever and at the N1 highway, and it really is a really significant backlog, so try and avoid that if you can. The Mopani highway still queuing down towards the N4 highway as well. If you're into Pinetown, there's some really heavy traffic on the M7. There's queues from Hunstedman up towards the N3, and then no lights at St John's Avenue Bridge, so you've sort of got 2 queues to work through. Crash at Sabaya, so from Umhlanga it all gets very heavy. And Cape Town starting to ease. Interestingly, the M5 not as bad as it could be. Bit of a pushback as you come up the N2 through Rondebosch, and the N1's the heaviest highway, still queuing from N1 City all the way through to the elevated freeway in the CBD. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey, good morning to you, Zai. After Afghanistan, we now turn our eyes to Bangladesh and its Themba Bavuma to the fore, is it?
Absolutely, yes, it is indeed. The Proteas being led by our captain Themba Bavuma, and they'll be spinning their way into Bangladesh and looking forward to a series win and not spinning out of control. Okay, so Cricket South Africa officially confirming that 2-match series starting on the 21st of October. So after a comprehensive security review, the Proteas are ready to take on the Tigers, and our leading man will be Themba Bavuma, and there'll be more spinners in the team. And of course, the team is set to arrive in Dhaka, Bangladesh on the 16th of October. It will be a spin-heavy squad, clearly geared up to take advantage of those subcontinent pitches. Now, Springbok fans and the Springboks riding high after an almost flawless 2024 international rugby season, winning 8 of their 10 games. Their only loss came by a single point against Ireland and Argentina. The Springboks are gearing up for their November tour to the UK, where they'll face Scotland, England and Wales. The Boks are looking to continue their winning momentum with stars like Apelele Fassi shining and the return of key players like Damian Willemse. The squad rotation has been a key factor in their success. Now, in a shocking turn of events, AmaZulu parting ways with their Spanish head coach Pablo Franco Martin just 3 games into the new Betway Premiership season. The club, currently at the bottom of the log with 3 losses, decided to make the change after a tough start. AmaZulu has conceded 6 goals and only managed to score twice, and that places them behind TS Galaxy on goal difference. Martin's assistant, Ato van den Broel, was also shown the door, and the club thanked both coaches for their contributions and wished them well as they move forward. Tennis action, Ugo Humbert will face Arthur Fields in an all-French Open final at the Japan Open after both players battled through their semi-finals. Humbert, who is unbeaten in all 6 of his previous finals on the ATP Tour, set up a showdown with his Paris Olympics doubles partners after beating the Czech Republic's Thomas Mashak 6-3, 3-6, 6-2. Fields edged Denmark's number 6 seed Holger Rune 7-6, 7-6 to join him in the final. And today's match will be the first all-French final, and that's on the ATP Tour in 4 years. And finally, Deputy Sports Minister of South Africa, Peace Mabau, has told national federations not to lift qualifying standards for the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, saying they were serious about Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie's plan to get 300 competitors to the next Games. Mabau's call at the South African Sport Confederation and Olympic Committee, SASCOC, it was an AGM held in Johannesburg, saying it was a major turn around, and this is after the previous 2 ministers, Zizi Kodwa and Nathi Mthethwa, had called for smaller Olympic teams, presumably to limit costs. But the ministry's new plan, dubbed Project 300, dovetails the bulk of sports bodies that in 2019 voted against SASCOC's stringent qualifying standards that had excluded several codes from Rio 2016. Now, Team South Africa totaled 149 at the Paris Games and 179 at Tokyo 2020. And that's how you wrap your sport up here on the Morning Brief for SAFM. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Dauleng Lichela has that business update for you. Good morning to you once again, Dauleng. Local miners are cutting almost 7,000 jobs in the second quarter. And that's not good news.
Not at all. The mining sector really bleeding jobs. Thulas, as you mentioned, shedding almost 7,000 jobs in the second quarter. Job losses mainly being recorded in the PGM sector. This is a sector we've been talking about a lot recently. And those miners really being hit by declining metal prices, and adding to that are issues at Transnet as well as high costs. Now, the mining industry lost nearly 10,000 jobs in the first half of the year and 7,000 in the second quarter, and this is also just following significant layoffs that were recorded late last year, and comes after a 35% decline in metal prices. And we saw miners like Amplats, who announced to slash 3,700 jobs. Other miners, including Sibanye Stillwater, that cut about 2,500 jobs at its South African platinum operations, as well as Impala Platinum, who restructured and cut about 4,000 jobs. In total, nearly 10,200 jobs were lost across these 3 companies from about late 2023. Now, economist at the Minerals Council, Hugo Pinar, did say that this was problematic, considering that the PGM sector is the largest employer in the mining industry, accounting for about 183,000 of the 479,000 total mining jobs last year. Pinar also says that the economic environment is improving, boding well for miners. But he has highlighted that issues like high electricity prices, considering that tariff hike that Eskom is trying to push through, as well as inefficiencies at Transnet, as factors that could still weigh heavily on the local mining sector.
Yeah, we kind of need that sleeping giant to rise up, mining as a sector, in terms of making its input for job creation in the country. Who is Mac Mining, and why is their performance under the spotlight?
So it's actually called MC Mining.
Mining. I thought it was one of those McNamara or something. Mac Mining, McDonald's. Okay, go ahead.
So Mac Mining, aka MC Mining, rather, is a junior coal miner, and it's really been hit hard. Just another mining company, showing that there are issues that are rearing their heads, and, prices that are weighing on operations. So in their latest results, the miner recorded a loss of $14.6 million, this reflecting a tripling in their loss. Revenue in the meantime fell 18% to $36.7 million. This was mainly due to a significant loss in its Valor Cold project, where it took an impairment valued at nearly $1 million. Additionally, the coal market experienced a downturn, with prices dropping from their previously elevated levels. This reversal in coal fortunes further contributed to the company's downbeat performance. Now, despite these challenges, MC Mining is pushing forward with its growth plans. The company is focused on developing the Makado project, improving operations at Uitkomst and Vele, and it's looking at securing more funding. Now, MC Mining has made significant progress in restructuring and securing new funding. The mine expects to finalize its funding initiatives by the close of the second half of the year. This would then allow it to navigate this tough economic environment as well as drive growth.
See what happens when you make fun of me saying mining. You start choking. Lastly, Ntaoleng, what kind of a day can we look forward to in the JSE, but also just a recap of Asia and US futures?
So the JSE could be in for a mixed start to the day on the back of the Fed's comments around its rate-cutting cycle. The central bank leaning towards a cautious approach when it comes to monetary easing. Global news aside, here at home, traders will be waking up to Capitec's interim results. The bank recording a 36% jump in earnings and declaring a dividend worth 20 Rand per share. Over in currency markets, the Rand taking a breather, trading at around 17.28 to the dollar. And in the US, futures are in the red, just under the flat line though. Traders there awaiting new catalysts to move markets as we kick off the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, in Asia, trading quite thin there as markets in China and Hong Kong are closed on account of a holiday. Japanese markets, though, powering through and on track to end the day in the green.
All right, thank you for that. Ntaoleng Lechela has been watching all things economy, business, as well as the markets for you throughout the morning here on the Morning Brief.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain. But paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
We definitely know what good insurance is. Our insurance don't delay when it comes to any claims. If something happens to one of our vehicles on the road, service delivery is the main thing.
They make sure that you are a satisfied customer from the beginning to the end.
It's definitely a win-win with our insurance.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online. Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers, are only interested in lifting up their third consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies, want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN 8 final. Wafa Wafa. Catch the reigning champs, Orlando Pirates, up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday, 5 October at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
So this is a crucial conversation in our fight against corruption as a country. The civil society organization Public Interest South Africa says it has received an overwhelming response to its call for nominations for the 2024 Whistleblower Awards. This will be the second installment of the awards, which aim to recognize and honor whistleblowers for their courageous efforts in exposing unethical behavior. Public Interest SA says the number of whistleblowers whistleblowers nominated this year is almost double the number of nominees received last year. Let's speak to Tebogo Gas, who is the chairperson of Public Interest South Africa. Good morning to you, Tebogo. I've got to thank you for your time. So give me a sense of the nominations that you are receiving compared to last year. What is the quality of the nominations and the spread of the areas in which these whistleblowers have come in to be helpful in the fight against corruption?
Well, thank you for that. As for the question of the quality of the nominations, only the judges themselves can be able to say. I'm not part of the judging panel, so they'd be able to assess. But certainly, insofar as the numbers, the responses themselves, it's almost double what we received last year, and certainly it goes across all spectrum of the categories of awards that we'll be giving out in next month.
So tell me a bit about the awards then. What's the idea behind the whistleblower awards, and what exactly do you award them for?
In short, the idea behind the awards is to recognize those brave patriots who actually go out of their way to ensure that they shine a light on wrongdoing or potential wrongdoing, both in the private sector and the public sector, and to encourage many others to actually do that, because without anybody speaking, wrongdoing will just continue. I mean, you can imagine the kind of violent society that we also live within. Look at what's going on in the Eastern Cape just a few days ago. Somebody knows somebody who did something, but often you find people keep it to themselves because they don't want to fall victim or to be known to have given information to ensure that those who are guilty or have committed crimes actually get to account for their sins. So we're trying to encourage people to speak out, to make sure that it is okay for people to speak out, and to make sure that we stop, as a society, we discourage those who are want to do wrong. So that is the idea behind the awards, in short. But more importantly, to ensure that we encourage more and more people to speak up.
Yeah, and in fact, Tebogo, if you can talk a bit more about what's the role of awards such as these in changing the narrative around whistleblowers, such that, there's a sense that's entrenched that if you blow the whistle, you see something wrong and you say something, you will not be treated as a pariah, which you and I know is a fate that is not uncommon to many whistleblowers of recent years.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because we know that often whistleblowers, they face retaliation, and we actually want to seek to ensure that such conduct that is faced by whistleblowers after having blown the whistle actually gets to be mitigated. In other words, more and more awareness, people get to understand that it is not a good thing, or it's not okay to actually subject whistleblowers to conduct such as retaliation or isolation or any other adverse conduct after having blown the whistle. We know that often whistleblowers get maligned, and some of them end up even losing their livelihood in terms of the workplace. If it's in a work environment, it becomes toxic, and then some of them tacitly or directly get to lose their job. Some of them the environment is made toxic for them, and they end up just leaving. So we try to encourage society, especially companies or employers, to ensure that they identify such instances and make sure that they take a dim view to any retaliation that may be meted against those who blow the whistle.
Lastly, Tebogo, let me ask you your honest and comprehensive assessment of whether anything has moved. We all know the right words to say, the platitudes about protecting whistleblowers. We've heard everyone from politicians to, various sectors in society speak about it. In the last 2.5 to 3 years, what has, in your view, moved towards ensuring better protection for whistleblowers?
Very little, in short, very little has moved. But what is encouraging, but at the same time not so encouraging, is the fact that we've seen towards the end of last year, after approaches and some pressures being made to the Department of Justice, they actually introduced a discussion document around changing the legislation around Protected Disclosure Act. And we are still waiting for a bill to actually be introduced so that we can actually go towards legislating and making sure that we attend, or we actually attend to those legislative matters that needs improvement. That is, the discouraging part is the fact that there seems to be some inertia of government inertia insofar as moving ahead with that process of legislating. But the awareness has grown because more and more now it's okay to talk about whistleblowing. It's okay to actually identify as having spoken, although we do know that the perils are actually high. Nothing has changed in terms of protecting whistleblowers themselves.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's Tebogo Khas, who is the chairperson of Public Interest South Africa. They have their Whistleblower Awards ceremony, and that's coming up on the 23rd of October, and it's happening in Main Lane in Pretoria a bit later on this month.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very heavy going north this morning around Joburg. Here's two highways to avoid or to attack them with plenty of extra time. One is the crash on the N3 at London Road. That is a really significant backlog all the way through Gululis and back towards Van Buren in the Bedford area. So jam-packed on the N3 running north. Also the Mike 1, not much better from sort of Houghton Drive territory at Parktown all the way through to Grayston Drive. That is absolutely solid. Approach roads to Sandton are fairly busy as well. Rivonia from Morningside, coming up at Rivonia onto Catherine through from Ilovo, some roadworks there, backlogging things. Republic Road onto Winnie Mandela turning down to Matty, that's all very slow as well. Olifantsfontein Road from Blue Hill side down towards the M1 highway stays very heavily backed up, and if you're going in or out of Shoshenguve, factor in extra travel time, queue time at least on the Mopani Highway just between Rossen Road and the N4. Now, Durban side, crash now between Gateway and Kwamashu. That's on your way into Durban. That's a queue because, of course, it's in the roadworks. The queue going north of Schlanger towards Sabaya. That's being cleared. And the big crash at Paradise Valley, that is also out of the way. So if you're leaving Durban, heading out towards Pinetown, that route is clear. Now, still no lights on St. John's Avenue Bridge, although the traffic volumes are dropping off and the delays are easing. Cape Town, very busy on the M1 inbound. You'll still sit from Goodwood all the way through to the elevated freeway. Marine Drive into that stays fairly heavily back through Pardon Island. And the M5 today, not as bad as it can be, but you will pick up some traffic from about Crombourne Road, moving up for a turn onto the busy N2 inbound to Hospital Bend. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Back-to-back champions, the Buccaneers are only interested in lifting up their third consecutive title. Meanwhile, Maroon and Gold, Stellies, want to ensure that black and white fans go to bed early. This is the MTN8 final. Wafa Wafa! Catch the reigning champs Orlando Pirates up against Stellenbosch FC on Saturday, 5 October at 5:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Upumapi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3, Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Did you know that 80% of South Africa's barley is sold to the beer industry? This locally sourced barley, along with other natural ingredients, plays a vital role in beer production, contributing 2.2 billion rand to the country's agricultural GDP. Join South African breweries on the 3rd of October in Caledon as we dive into the state of the beer economy. SAB, brewing a future full of cheers. South Africa, be sharp, not for sale to persons under 18.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let's talk a bit more before I go. Let's take some of your calls now and some of your voice notes. Let me start with Vincent, who is in Midrand. And Vincent, you want to talk about the issue of crime in this country. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Thulas. Yes, Thulas, there's 2 points here quickly.
Yeah.
I think there's a problem with our enforcement or police system, particularly with respect to some individuals in police. And also there's a problem with the murderers themselves. Now, we need to tackle this problem with a decisive intention to solve those two things. One, if you go out, for example, regarding the police and law enforcement people, and then you put 200 members that are non-visible, that are going to be all over the show, and police do not know exactly who is these members. And then that when they are busy doing whatever the church business that they do not know who they're dealing with. And at a point where they deal with one of the 200, then get fired on the spot, and then they would know that they need to limit just taking church as a culture. It mustn't be. And the second is that how would you say to us we are going to correctional service, and then you take a murderer, you put him or her in the same correctional service, when we know outside and from information from inside to say, when you go inside, they ask you what were you arrested for, you say for murder, then they give you someone to murder in the same cell to show what you are able to do. That's what is happening in our jails. So if they should separate these things, because there's no correctional aspect of anyone that is killing someone.
All right, I've got to leave it there. Vincent in Midrand talking about some of the fixes that need to happen within police themselves, but also within the correctional services system to ensure that it serves the purpose that it is meant for. Let me speak to Putana, who is out in Rosebank. And Putana, you want to talk about the conversation we just had now about whistleblowing. Good morning to you.
Indeed. Good morning, my brother. You know, the ANC government just refused to act on crime. They just refused. Justice Zondo told them on the findings what they need to do to protect the whistleblowers. What they did, they just ignore it. Even this new government, they just ignore it. They take forever to put on the law. They are not serious about solving the crime.
Yeah.
It's so annoying. Every time they will be shocked. When you talk about the Siki, 2 family members, as you have mentioned there, they were killed before. Can they follow up that thing? Can they follow up? They say they are going to revive the docket. Nonsense.
All right, I hear you, Putana. I hear and I take the strong emotion in your voice. And my worry is that we will be sitting here condemning in the strongest possible terms when there's been another person who's been killed who's a whistleblower. And again, platitudes about being committed to protecting whistleblowers. On that theme, let me speak to Babitseng, who is in the Northern Cape. Good morning to you, Babitseng.
Hi, Thulasizwe. I wanted to talk about this thing of inform, but let me zoom into football. This game of last week, Saturday. I mean, these teams, they put a lot of effort and money, because football is money. And they prepare these players. And then a referee decides who's going to win. Not on a fair basis, because this is the third time. Last year, Chiefs lost in a cup game, and it's with Mamelodi Sundowns, as well as in a fixture. This is the third time. You can't keep on when referees are doing these mistakes, and then they are being suspended. They should ban these people, man.
All right, Babitseng, I've got to move on from that. That's Babitseng out in the Northern Cape talking football. Lastly, Felix, short and sharp for me. You want to talk about e-tolls. Good morning to you.
Thulas, I'm sorry, man, but I don't like the shortness because I've got something to say here, and I want you to listen.
It's time, my brother. That's how it is. Let's make the most of it.
Yeah, it's just these e-tolls. These e-tolls from the word go, our message didn't want them. And those e-tolls pick up there on their own. Whoever signed this documentation and agreed to these e-tolls, they should be paying this rubbish here, because now you take taxpayers' money without consultation. You pay this rubbish. Who benefited from these things from the word go? Now, on top of it, you tell us that You're not going to refund people that pay their money. On top of that, that means those people are now paying price, because even this money, that 3.8 billion, it's a lot of taxpayers' money.
All right, let's leave it there.
How are these politicians just bullying us, just walking over us? For what?
All right, thank you, Felix. You see, we made the most of the 1 minute that you and I had. That's Felix out in Umtata. They're talking about the issue of the e-tolls and the payment that has been made by the Gauteng provincial government of 3.8 billion rand. And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. Thank you for listening, and thanks to the team that put it all together. The Talking Point is up next here on SAFM, but first, your news update. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, civilians take shelter as evacuations from Lebanon are ongoing and MK party seeks postponement of JSC sitting. Good morning. Officials in Lebanon say more than 1,000 people have been killed in the past 2 weeks, while up to 1 million may now be displaced. This as the Israeli Defense Forces say a limited, localized and targeted ground operation is underway against Hezbollah in the southern part of the country. Civilians have started taking shelter away from the affected areas as some foreign nationals continued to be evacuated from Lebanon. The Lebanese Member of Parliament, Najad Ayun Saliba, described to the BBC the situation in southern Beirut.
What we're hearing are the sounds of the Israeli airplanes going back and forth and striking more and more neighborhoods. And we see more killing on the ground and more people displaced. I think we're moving into a huge humanitarian crisis with today rain pouring. And we have almost 1 million people. Some of them are on the sides of the roads staying because they have nowhere to stay.
Back home, police have arrested over 10,000 suspects across the country during Operation Shanela over the last week for crimes such as murder, attempted murder, rape and assault. Some of the major highlights of the operation include the arrest of an 11th drug mule at OR Tambo International Airport in 2 months. SAPS spokesperson Amanda van Wyk.
We have also arrested 217 drug dealers, 348 for drunken driving, and 784 for being in possession of drugs. We have recovered 115 firearms during operations. 26 of these firearms were confiscated during police operations in the Western Cape, while KwaZulu-Natal confiscated 22. 1,107 rounds of ammunition were also confiscated. 44 hijacked and stolen vehicles were also recovered during this week's operations.
The trial of alleged rhino poaching kingpin Joseph Nyalunga and his co-accused is expected to resume at the Mpumalanga Division of the High Court in Mbombela. Nyalunga and his 3 co-accused are facing over 40 rhino poaching related cases. The matter was adjourned to today to allow the state to appoint a new prosecutor. Apparently, the previous prosecutor resigned from the NPA, and one of the accused also wanted an opportunity to apply for legal aid. Mutsibi wa Munareng reports.
Joseph Big Joe Nyalunga, a former police officer, and his co-accused former Skukuza police officers Cloud Mnisi, Constable Areta Mhlanga, and Rachel Kwebane are facing over 40 rhino poaching related cases and racketeering committed between 2016 and 2019. The accused are all out on warning. The accused have pleaded not guilty on all the charges.
Lawyers for the Mkhonto-weSizwe political party have written to the Judicial Service Commission seeking a postponement of the next sitting of the JSC this month. It follows an interim interdict granted by a full bench of the Western Cape High Court, which holds Dr. John Hlophe from participating in the JSC sitting, pending a review of his designation to the JSC. The JSC is expected to hold its next sitting from the 7th to the 11th of this month. Kenny Mapanga reports.
In the letter to the JSE dated 30 September 2024, attorneys on behalf of the MK party contend that the effect of the interdict renders the JSE improperly constituted. As a result, pending the review of Dr. Hlophe's designation to the JSE, the MK is seeking a postponement of the October sitting of the JSE and have further demanded a response by Tuesday, the 1st of October 2024, failing which, the party is expected to take further legal steps.
Data released by the South African Reserve Bank shows private sector credit in the country increased by 4.9% year-on-year in August this year, from a 5-month low of a 3.5% rise in the previous month. The uptick marked the 38th consecutive month of growth in private credit and the highest level since July 2023. The data points to an increase in total loans and advances to households on a month-on-month basis in August. Chief Economist at Efficient Group, Davi Root.
There seemed to be a slight increase compared to previous months for credit in the South African economy, and one would have expected that simply because of the Government of National Unity. That means that people are more willing to take on more credit, and we all know that there's more of a positive sentiment in the financial market, so one would have expected that, as well as the lower interest rates, and at that time the expectations of further reduction in interest rates. Those are all factors that probably would have contributed to a slight increase in private sector credit demand and hence money supply as well.
Recapping the top story, officials in Lebanon say more than